Go live, and it says we're live. So we're live.
We're live.
How's it going? Hey, we're
Good.
live, everybody.
Hello.
How's everybody doing? It is Monday night, and it's going to YouTube. So right on, everything's working the way it's supposed to. Hopefully, the sound is working. But this is the Convergence. I'm 97 Bravo, and tonight with me is Chantal from the Scarif Podcast. How you doing tonight,
I'm
Chantal?
doing well. I'm doing really well. I had a day off today, so I'm
You did.
relaxed. Yes,
What'd you do today? Did you have anything big happen to you today that you wanted to talk
I
about?
did, but I will not actually talk about that live just in case.
Okay.
But
Oh, okay.
other than that, wink, wink, I went to the dentist. Fun,
Ah.
fun. So,
Well, right on. Okay.
mhm.
So I thought maybe there was some extra
Yeah,
information
no,
on it. No. Okay.
mm-mm.
Well, right on.
Not
Well,
yet.
happy Monday to you,
Thank you.
and happy dentist appointment. No cavities, right?
Yeah, nope, no cavities.
No cavities. No cavities.
Thank God.
Well, the funny thing is how you got thrown into the mix. And for those that don't know, this is the 13th episode of the Convergence podcast. And
Ooh.
basically what I do by myself here in my dungeon is this is the reality of the people behind the entertainment and talking with people and the fun stuff, the people behind the entertainment type of
Hmm.
thing. And so where real life and um, escapism converge, and then of
Right.
course geeking out on the side
Hmm.
about different things on Twitter. um, but the reason I wanted to have you on was because of how you got thrown into the mix with Roe and Brad and that whole situation. But before we get to that, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself? Where did you grow up, and what do you define as your era?
Well, first of all, I think it's really hilarious that this is your 13th episode and today is the 13th. So that's freaking weird.
Oh,
Um,
okay. That was
awesome.
yeah,
Too bad it wasn't
that
Friday.
is cool.
That'd
Yeah,
be
I know.
great.
That would be very cool.
But I am born and raised in Miami, and I still live in Miami, actually. Hoping not to be here anymore, honestly. Um,
Really?
yeah,
You've outgrown Miami?
I've outgrown Miami. I never went away for college or anything like that.
Mm,
So, never lived on my own or anything like that. So, it's become so mundane and nothing ever changes. And we don't really have a changing of the seasons. It's pretty much hot 365 days out of the year. We get that one
yes,
week
it
where
is.
it
Yeah.
dips below 70 and everybody freaks out and puts on a parka, which I don't understand. But for the
Well, it's
most part,
because so damn humid. Yeah, and you guys are so used to
yeah, I
the other end of that.
personally am the opposite. I prefer the cold over the heat. I say all the time I was born in the wrong city. But yeah, born and raised in Miami, dying to escape. So if anyone
Yeah.
can relate to escapism, it's me.
Yeah. No, yeah, no, I can totally relate. I grew up in the valley in California, and
Mm,
so it was god awful hot in the summertime, but it was
oh,
drier.
right.
But yeah, no, the heat and the smog, all the stuff that associated with summertime was so hard to know every year it was coming. I mean, I don't, Florida, I've been there in all the different seasons,
Yeah,
and yes,
seasons.
I don't prefer that state or that region of the country, I should say, for that very reason.
Ugh,
But yeah, no, it's
it's
what do
awful.
you what 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 is it specifically about Miami? I mean, is it the bugs? I mean, because there's a lot of friggin' bugs and stuff. For you just
Well,
hey, the Red Five Network's here. They're in chat.
hey guys. Well, I mean, not to divulge some of the stuff that we talk about in our group chat, but I have mentioned, I'm sure, many times already that I have a serious phobia of bugs. So it does not help that I live in land of the bugs, especially when
or
we
that they
have.
or that they look like they come from outer space.
Yeah, especially when palmetto bugs are nothing more than an oversized glorified roach. You know what I mean? A roach is like that
Mhm.
big. A palmetto bug
That
is about that
fly,
big.
that
Yeah,
fly.
and that's another thing that does not help my nerves none whatsoever. So I'm
No.
actually really grateful that I live in an apartment building right now, and I'm like
Mm.
on the 6th floor because they can't really get me up there. But yeah,
You're safe.
I am
City in the
safe.
clouds.
I will never
You're
live near a lake here. You're just
it's
asking for it.
no. Yeah, no, no, not in a humid environment. Oh my, I
Mm-mm.
couldn't even imagine. Ugh.
And it
But what
goes deep. Like, I don't even like butterflies. Like, they creep me the hell out.
so what is it about that I mean, what happened to you? Did you fall down a cave in a really dark
Yes,
shaft?
yes, yes. My
Yeah,
version of Batman. Yes, my
after
version
your
of
parents'
Batman.
funeral and
I'm
then all these
Butterfly Woman.
butterflies and
Yes, I'm
right,
Butterfly Woman.
dragonflies and
Madam Butterfly. No. Um,
stuff.
this is like the dumbest story, but not dumb to me, obviously, because it's given me a
Right.
lifelong, amount of pain, but an insecurity.
Like
But
Pennywise, and this is what I gotta hear. Like I gotta hear the trauma behind the
as
butterflies and the
I
dragonflies.
don't even know how old I was. I must have been like 5 years old, and we lived. Again, this will also explain why I don't like lakes. The first house that I ever lived in was this cute little townhouse, but it had a lake in the backyard,
Hmm.
which is fine. But unfortunately, that brought palmetto bugs and things like that into the house.
Hmm.
So that's fear number one. Number
Mm.
two, it's amazing how
When you're
vivid
not
this is.
expecting them and shit, like in the middle of the night,
Oh,
that's the thing that gets me. Like
well,
that.
my parents think I'm dreaming, but I have a very vivid memory of like being in my bed, opening my eyes and seeing one crawling like across my bed. And so to this day, I have nightmares of
Yeah.
them crawling on my bed. So it's in there. I also
Nope.
got dressed for school one day, put my foot into my shoe, getting ready for school. I
I was
felt
wondering.
something. When I pulled my foot out, one came scurrying out of my shoe. And I just remember just staring at it and just being in
That'll do it.
pure shock and I didn't even react. I didn't cry. I didn't do anything. It was just pure shock, just reacting inside because I've always been that way.
Mhm.
And ever since then, if I see one, the anxiety takes over. I have a full on panic attack. I will stop breathing. I scared the shit out of my ex-husband once. He literally had to carry me and pick me up and physically carry me to the bed. He was like holding on to me until you have to breathe. You have to
Oh my
breathe because
goodness.
I was not breathing.
Which bug was
Butterfly.
that?
It was a palmetto bug.
Oh my
It was
god.
we had been away from the house for a while. We were at his
Mhm.
sister's wedding, and the house had been really warm, and no one was there for 4 days. And when we came back, one came crawling out of the closet door. There was another one in the hallway. Then there was one in the kitchen.
They're
And
just
to me, it
mocking you.
felt like they were coming from everywhere, and it
Just
felt like
looking
a
at you. Ha
fucking
ha.
like a haunted house. I was like, where the hell am I? It was
Dun, 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 dun,
so
dun, dun.
bad. And he had never seen me get that way before. So it was
Oh,
extra scary for him. I
that's
have
horrible.
I have actually
Because
stopped
how big
wearing.
are they? How big?
They're
Like
like this big. They're pretty big. They're pretty
so
big. They're
two.
probably 2 or 3 inches. They
So
get
not the
pretty
wing.
big.
You mean the wingspan or the
I
front?
wouldn't know because I've never seen one fly
Notice
and I
to
never
ask.
want to
Oh,
see
okay.
one fly. And I hope I never see one fly because that'll be the day that I get sent to the hospital on a gurney. So I hope I
You
never
just fall out.
encounter that.
Just that's it. Boom.
Listen, even at work, I've had a panic attack at work because I'm very observant about it. So I happened to look up once at the ceiling because the ceiling is white. But
Palmetto bug.
I
Palmetto
noticed
bug.
something in my
Palmetto.
peripheral vision, something was moving above me. And I just remember looking and I looked at my manager and she's like, "What?" And I'm just like, she's like, "What?" Spit it out. I'm just like,
The
she's like,
shrieking.
she saw it. She's like, "Go outside. Just go, go
Oh, you didn't say
outside."
anything? Oh
She just go
no.
outside. I went
We had a
outside. She had to take me for a walk around the building.
mm,
I had a full
paper
on
bag.
freak out. I had to get rid of my Apple Watch. I had to get rid. You know what it is to go from 73 beats per minute to
Oh
215 in 60 seconds?
no.
That'll I
Uh,
that's what happens. It's awful. I mean, it's
maybe
yeah,
that was a long time ago that we
oh
were
yeah.
talking. Not
But
in the tech
yeah.
context you're talking about,
Yeah,
but
and
yeah,
as for the butterfly,
that's
that was also another bad childhood experience. Just, just being really young and even from a young age, just being very weird about my personal space. And it was a black and yellow striped butterfly. I was outside playing. I guess I must at that maybe I had never seen a butterfly before. I was so young when this happened. And I had a little mermaid sleeping bag that I was playing with outside. Why? In the dead of summer in Florida. And, to me, the butterflies here are big. In Florida, everything here is big. All the bugs are fucking huge. So, I mean,
It's like
the
Jurassic
butterflies here are
Park.
big. Yeah, I mean, seriously.
Florida is, yeah.
And for me at that age, it was just so close. It was like, in my face, and I freaked out. And I just remember, like, just wrapping myself up in my sleeping bag and out in the backyard. And I don't really remember much after that. And ever since then,
Just
it's
went
just
black.
I can't do any insects at all. They all pretty much get the same reaction out of me. It's
Death
that feeling of
by someone else.
invasiveness. You
They just get
little
this from a
fucker, you're not.
distance.
How did you get in my house?
Right, but you're just pointing quietly. What do you do
I
now? You
can't.
just
That's the
wait
problem.
for
I
your dog to
can't.
notice them? You don't, what do you, how do you,
And
do they
that's the
just,
other thing. And
you
now
have
I
a
live
whole
by
room that you've
myself.
just ushered them
No, and now
into?
I live by
No.
myself, and my father was kind enough to give me like this industrial bug spray, and me like a freak, like every 2 months I go around the apartment and I just spray the
Oh,
hell
yeah.
out of the place.
Well, the
I
outside
have
too,
to.
like the
Oh,
outside of the windows and
on the
stuff.
balcony, absolutely. I am
You should get one
no
of those,
fool
like,
when it
just,
comes to that.
you know how some people have those, you've seen them, the little, you can get very nice ones. They're like paper balls that you can put
Uh-huh.
lights in. You've seen those on
Yes, yes,
balconies. You should
yes.
just line your balcony with
With that.
bug zappers. No, bug
Yeah,
zappers.
I would love
Because
that.
in Florida, you could just be out there. It'd be like the 4th of July. It'd be
Yes.
like a rave out there on your balcony every night. Like a
I had
house party.
you can ask Ro. We were in the
You could do
middle
it.
of we were in the middle of doing what is it? One of those things what are they called now? On Twitter, those live things that you can do. I don't even remember. It barely lasted. They still do 'em?
The,
I can't. What the
I
heck
don't
are
know
they
why.
called? Not the fleets. The other thing. They got rid of the fleets.
The live thing that they do now?
Yeah, so we were doing that once, me and Ro, and all of a sudden you just hear me go, "Holy shit!" And like somehow a wasp got into my apartment, and I don't know how. And
A
I had to get
wasp?
a wasp. I don't know how it got in the apartment because
That's a
I barely
four-alarm
go out into
siren.
my balcony because of my fear of
Yeah.
bugs. So I don't know how it got in. So immediately I'm like looking for a nest, and I had to take that spray that my dad got me, and from a distance I'm just like, like
Is it that foam stuff, or is it just? Does it shoot
no,
far?
yeah, it does. It's an
Yeah.
actual spray. It's liquid. And I was just like, all right, here comes my very limited gaming skills. And somehow I shot that sucker dead on. I'm like, you're not getting into this house. And that was it. That was the end of that. Yeah.
It's always fun spraying poison across your living quarters, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah. It's
Yeah.
great. Yeah.
We lived. There was a time I was in Georgia for entirely too long. No one.
Mhm.
I'm sorry. For everyone in Georgia, bless your hearts for living in Georgia, because if I had to live in Georgia, I'd be upset constantly for the same reason as Florida. The weather, it's beautiful. Don't get me wrong; it's absolutely gorgeous in
But
Georgia.
it can be unbearable.
Oh,
It can
yeah,
be
at all the wrong
unbearable.
times. At all the wrong times.
Mm-hmm.
Rain, and heat,
Mm-hmm.
and all that stuff. But we had bugs. There's awful bugs, god awful bugs. And then there was another time, more specifically, and this is more arachnids, or I don't even know what they are, scorpions
Yeah.
in the desert in California.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was stationed at Fort Irwin, and that was the main thing, is snakes and scorpions and shit like that.
Right.
And one time I was at Fort Polk in Louisiana, and I swear to God, I'm telling you right now. So
God.
behind us, so basically you're pretending to have war,
Uh-huh.
and there's starts and stops. You have referees. I'm not even kidding. You have referees that
Right.
basically train you, gauge you, whatever,
Mm-hmm.
watch you, oh, they were just effing off, or, stuff like that.
Right.
Anyway, so you're there to train. But there are times where, like, all the fighting was going to happen in front of us. And so we were all quiet. There's nothing happening behind us. So luckily we could all face that way and not worry about this. Well, in the morning, as the sun, I swear I have to make this opening sequence to a movie or something. I don't even know what I'd call it. But as the sun is cresting, right? Just boop, just as soon as you can see the orange, you can hear the mosquitoes. Hear them. Like
Ugh.
this. Have you seen like movies with like these tiny insect drones that are supposed to be, and they're all, and it's like
Yes.
this big ball of, that's what it looks like coming
Oh God.
off of the field heading towards us. And it was just like, oh my God, look at what is that? It was horrible. It was all mosquitoes. And you had stuff. I had bites on my eyelids.
Oh
I had
God.
bites in between my fingers,
How did you all survive
behind
that?
my ears. Oh, it was absolutely maddening. And it was like everybody went slightly berserk. Really, like little, not angry, not like that, not berserk, but like a little bit insane. Sergeant was walking across. He basically went off in the woods to
Oh
go
my
do his
God.
business
Hmm.
with a shovel. We did, with a shovel and toilet paper, as normal, right? He's
Yeah.
going to do his thing.
Hmm.
He's taken off and he's just wearing his underwear. And that's the no. I don't care if we all are like at wartime out and we're all, and there he goes. And we're like, but yeah, that's what it was. One thing that saved us though was this one kid, and it was his idiosyncrasy of hurting himself.
Uh-huh.
He would put his cigarette out on his
Right.
hand.
Hmm.
That way we'd kind of separate him and have to deal with him. But he didn't deal with confined, and you get the end really hot. You don't, not to skin, but
Right.
if you get it over the mosquito bite, the really,
Uh-huh.
really itchy ones that you can't stand,
Right.
at that moment of kind of, all right, very slowly get it closer, and you hold it kind of as long as you can, but you kind of bring it like up and down. You're not
Okay.
trying to burn yourself,
Right, right, right.
but you get this like hurt, tickle,
Interesting.
feel good, like, oh, like you can feel almost
Hmm.
it's not happening, like the poison is coming out, and then you let it go and it's gone. I
That
mean,
is
sometimes
really
you got to
good
go
to
back into it.
know.
We did it with cigarettes a lot because we didn't smoke cigars out in the
Right,
field, but
right,
we
of
did it with,
course.
but yeah, I mean, it's not
That's
healthy, but
interesting
while
to
we're
no,
out there,
I
we're all
know, but
smoking anyways.
yeah,
But I'm
I
talking,
get it.
drastic times call for drastic measures,
I
because
get
I'm
that.
talking
Yeah.
like you lost count how many of the
Oh my
behind the
God.
knee,
I
in
would
the
have
nether
died.
regions, behind the ear. I got to tell you, and we all had short hair. Having mosquito bites on your scalp is the word, like
Ooh.
tight skin.
Because it's tight.
Very,
Right. Exactly. Oh my God. I
very
can't even
horrible.
begin to imagine.
Where would you move? Where would you move if you could move away from Florida and more Miami specifically and take the best parts with you? Where would you go, and what would those best parts be?
Well, to be perfectly, my dream has always been to live in New York City. It always
Mm.
has been. I don't know why. I don't know if it's just because I'm such a huge movie person and so many great movies have always taken place in New York City. So you always kind of associate it with just being kind of like this magical place. I've been to New York City many times, probably 5 times at least now, and I
Mm-hmm.
love it. And I love it and I love it each time that I go. The only thing that I probably want to there's probably two, well, maybe three. There are probably three things that I would want to bring with me from Miami if I could to New York City, but it would be impossible. One, the
If you
beach up
could,
there. The beach
even
up
if
there
it was,
sucks. The beach up in the Northeast sucks. So obviously, I would want to bring the beaches of Miami with me because the beach in Miami is absolutely beautiful, and I'm a swimmer. I love to swim, so I'm big on water.
oh, okay,
Oh, I'm huge on my parents. Is the moment they could get me and my sister in a pool. We were in a pool. So I'm a
it's like
fish.
tadpoles, just
Oh yeah, yeah. Oh, my
yeah.
sister and I, big swimmers, huge swimmers. My grandfather was a swimmer, so it makes sense. It's just in our blood. Disney World. That would be a really hard thing for me to leave. Honestly, it's probably the biggest thing that I keep thinking about. Like, oh my God, to leave Disney World, that it's like 3 hours away
Because
from me.
do
Y-
you? How often do you go?
Often enough that I would miss it.
Do do you live? Because I know I'm only assuming because of how they do it in California. If you live within, like, if they have a list of zip codes
Hmm.
around Disney World, but
Right.
in my case Disneyland, that you got, it wasn't like all California zip codes got a
Hmm.
discount, but if you lived in the special sort of zone around Disneyland,
Oh,
I think
really?
your discount
No.
was like $5 deeper or 5% deeper or something
No,
like that.
if you're a
No,
Florida resident,
Florida,
you get a discount no matter where you live in Florida.
very
You
cool.
get a
I'm
discount at
also
Disney. But I'm a pass holder. I'm a pass
pass
holder.
holder,
Yeah, I'm a pass
annual.
holder.
Wow.
Annual pass holder, yeah.
Very
Yeah.
cool. So
Yeah.
I'm sorry, how many times do you go each year? Roughly.
Well, unfortunately now, of course, with everything going on with the
Wow.
pandemic,
In a
typically
perfect world.
I would try to go twice a year, but of course, after once, I became
Hmm.
single again and stuff like that, and then got the annual pass holder, my intention was to go at least like 3 times a year because I could go 3 or 4 times a year if you really let me.
So is it 3 hours? Is 3 hours from Miami to
Yeah, it's
Orlando?
3 hours for me. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
A little less if traffic is in your favor, and if you drive like a bat out of hell like I do, then you could probably get there in 2 hours and 45 minutes.
That's not a bad day though, because
No, not at all.
how long would you actually stay? Because would you do it sectionally? How would you do it? Would you break it out, or would you
So,
have to see? Do you have to see everything every time?
and that's what I was just gonna say. Listen, I am never, and you can ask her. I am never of the belief that just because you love something that you're gonna love absolutely everything about it. So, for instance, even honestly, as a kid, from what I can remember, I've never been one for parades. I don't like parades. I think they're a waste of time. I get it. It's a nice break. The kids love it. Blah blah blah. Blah. Whatever. I'm there to ride. I'm a daredevil. I like to ride rides, even if it is Magic Kingdom and it's more for the kids. It doesn't matter. I've always been a theme park person. I like to ride. So
Mhm.
when I go to Disney, that's like the last thing I want to do. I never watch the parade. The only parade I've really enjoyed was when I went for the Christmas time, the Christmas one, and they have a
Mhm.
Christmas parade, which is really beautiful. And they have
Yeah,
fake
yeah.
snow falling, and it's really beautiful.
It's yeah,
And you see Santa at the end, which is great. And I've
yeah.
taken a picture with Santa at Disney.
Hmm.
But oh my God. I mean, I guess if I didn't end up leaving Florida and just left Miami, because really my issue, I think, is more Miami than it is Florida as a whole. Because
Hmm.
northern Florida is very tranquil and peaceful, which I kind of like. I'm over the city. As young as I am, I'm over the city
No,
life, but
right. Oh yeah, yeah.
I would move to Orlando to be closer to Disney, and I would suffer the city just to be closer to Disney.
Would you? So you would prefer, ideally? I mean, by all rights, if you could, but like northern, like the Panhandle, like that.
Yeah,
That's
that'd be nice.
that's different country. That's almost like a different state, though. Have
I've been
you've
to
been to the Panhandle?
Tallahassee. I've been
Yeah.
to Gainesville. I've been to Fort Walton Beach, which is really getting more towards, the
Mm,
Panhandle, towards the end, where the state line is, which is really beautiful. I enjoyed Tallahassee very much. It didn't have a major city life, obviously, but it is still a college town because FSU is
mhm,
there. So
mhm.
there is a certain level of city life in terms of restaurants and stuff.
But
And
it's
it's
like
really beautiful
nothing,
up there.
right? It's nothing, and then boom, and then
Yeah,
nothing.
it's
Like
very much
it's
a
just
suburb,
right, right.
old brick houses and brick buildings. I mean, absolutely
Hmm.
gorgeous. Personally, I like the Northeast. I like Connecticut, Rhode Island, Massachusetts,
All
New
right.
York.
The
I, I
arc,
like I like it up there. It's really beautiful up there.
like the
That's more.
architecture,
Yeah,
the
I
weather.
like that. I like the weather. I like that Victorian Gothic look.
Hmm.
Like it's one of the things that I want to do is I literally want to go to the actual town, little village of Sleepy Hollow up in New York. Like that's something that I really want to do. I would actually like to go around the country and do a ghost tour, to tell you the truth. That's my thing. I love that stuff.
That'd be awesome.
I've always wanted to do that kind of crap.
That'd be absolutely awesome. You're not afraid, or you do it by yourself, or would you go like with a group, like get a
I would
country,
probably
like?
do it with a group. I would do it with the group. I used to do that kind of stupid stuff with my friends here, honestly, because supposedly there's a couple of places down here, obviously, that are haunted. So I did
Oh
that
yeah,
once here. So
sure. Yeah, they're everywhere. There's stuff here. I'm like, okay, whatever. There's stuff when we were growing up. There's it's fun because you scare yourself, and I think that's the as a kid, even young teens or
yeah,
early 20s or whatever, because you end up scaring yourself, and that becomes the fun. Not that you saw Ichabod Crane or some shit, the
it
pumpkin throne.
it also
No, it
doesn't.
wasn't Headless Horseman. Not Ichabod wasn't throwing the
Yeah,
party.
no,
That's right. It
it
was
also
the
doesn't help when your mother has been telling you literally your entire life. You so totally have some form of ESP because she says it's really weird sometimes, like some of the shit that happens. The amount of deja vu that I experience. She says, sometimes your father and I will be talking about you and all of a sudden you text us or you call us. She's like, sometimes there's just some really weird shit that goes down. Like, like when we start talking to you and stuff like that. So it's really funny. So yeah, I would probably invite all of that in and scare myself shitless.
You don't stop bullets in midair or anything like that.
No, I wish, man, that'd be
No.
badass. No, sorry,
That's
I'm
awesome.
not Neo.
Well, you're the Oracle then. That's
Yes.
who you are.
Oh
You're the
God,
Oracle.
I wish.
You're not Trinity or there you go.
No. And I make great cookies.
Oh, okay. Well, there you go. You're the Oracle. Well, who would you say? Who would you say Brad is then? If Brad was one of the characters from the movie and you're the Oracle
From the Matrix. Oh God,
right? Who would Brad be?
I don't know. Who would Brad be?
He'd be the architect.
Probably. Who would Ro be?
Ro?
Who would Ro be?
You know what? You know who he would be? I'm telling you right now. The brother that lives. Which is the brother?
Oh, yeah.
Because doesn't the big brother die like right away?
I think
from
so.
the original Matrix.
Mm-hmm.
You know who I'm
yes.
talking about?
Yes.
Was it Dozer?
Yes. Man,
that was the guy. That was the guy that hooked you in, right?
Yes. Yeah. Man, I gotta go back and watch The Matrix. It's been such a long time. I used to love that movie. That movie's so good.
Oh my God. When that came out.
It was so good.
I can't even tell you. I was
in it blew my
99.
Mind. Yeah.
I was a year and a half.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, a year and a half in the military. And one of the best things to do to completely, totally warp out of that mindset is to dress like I do and go to the mall and go see a movie. Find the best movie theater within reason that had the best sound, the best everything, and go to that. And yeah, The Matrix, man. It was where was I? I was in Texas, and it was the Cinemark, Tinseltown, Sierra Vista Mall. I think it's Sierra Vista Mall, or maybe that's. Anyways, watch you.
What did you think of the new trailer,
dude? That movie. We walked out of that thing at the time. This is what I'm thinking, or this is what I'm saying. When I saw this one, I remember back in that day, that even in that time frame, we were still watching. No one was really truly watching trailers on their computer as the regular. Like it was still relatively new, and that was one of those that really was a big movie, and to see that thing technological wise, that was. It just blew me away. It was exactly what I needed. I mean, these are the ones that, these are the ones that we were talking a little bit on the show on Scarif, but it's movies like this. It's movies, moments, who you're with at the time, the moments that are created so much more than it's actually the people you're with and the moments that are created than the thing that's going on.
Correct.
But what happens is when you have that impression, it imprints on you, you know, like, when you're all in the theater at the same time, seeing something so when we're there as a team, friends, you know, whatever have you, squad mates, and we're all we're all freaking out in the theater. Everybody, this is like
it's a great feeling, because it's collective. It's great.
Oh yeah,
you feed off of it. It's wonderful.
Totally. And when I saw I waited until I could watch it on my big screen TV with the sound turned up and all that stuff. And so I was like, it didn't quite get me back there, but there were so many beats.
I know.
If you watch that Matrix show, that there were so many beats that it hits that I'm like, oh man, this is gonna it's gonna be like we're on shrooms, but we're not on shrooms. You know what I'm saying?
Exactly.
It's like, oh my God, because the first one was the first one was a lot more fun afterwards because of everybody talking about it.
Right, exactly. Mean? Right. There was so much more discussion.
The second two weren't quite as fun because they were like all the exposition to tell you what they wanted to tell you about it. And we were like,
I'm really hoping this fourth movie is going to do some justice, because to tell you the truth, I really don't like the two sequels, to be quite honest. I mean, I just really love the first movie, and then the other two just didn't do it for me.
Right.
I barely even remember them. That I plan on rewatching all of them before I watch the fourth movie, because it's been such a long time.
Yeah, they're on HBO right now.
Yeah.
So
God bless HBO Max.
Yeah.
It's
And
my
if they want
favorite
to
app.
sponsor me, they're more than welcome to
I know them and Disney
reach out.
Plus have just been like a savior. Those are my
Yeah.
two favorite apps.
If Disney would like to sponsor me, that would be fantastic
Please.
too.
Oh, I would love nothing more than for Disney to sponsor me.
As long as they've seen my content and they still want to sponsor me, that's perfectly fine. I have no problem with that. We've seen eye to eye. I will cash that check gratefully.
All day long.
Right. You hired this. What do you want, man? I mean, Gina comes out of left field or, that kind of thing. She sort of rose up really quickly. And so that was kind of one of those, it felt to me anyways, like she was like sort of actually like coming out of the Matrix for the like as she like around the time of the Mandalorian, as she was whoever was like, I don't know what happened, but it appears as though she was new to the world. There's a level of naivete to how she grew up that when she started tweeting and doing the memes and all that stuff. Yeah. But I mean, if someone approached me and they're like, hey, we saw your content, sign on the we want to pay you something. It'd be like, cool.
The fuck do I sign? Where's the pen?
My full name, my full legal name.
Please, absolutely.
Just X, get quicker to the check. What is that? I mean, in all honesty, we've all been critical of things. What do you think? And being critical of certain aspects of even where you grew up. What if someone came after Miami though, and they're just like, oh, the city sucks, whatever. Is there still a level to it though that you're like, you know what? Stop, or you're just like,
let me put it to you this way.
You're throwing the matches on your way out of town. You're just like, later, guys. And whoosh, the whole.
Let me put it to you this way. My ex-sister-in-law, her husband, born and raised in New York, came down here to live in Miami. That's how they met. When I met him, and I asked him, oh, where are you from? And he said, oh, I'm from New York, and I came and moved down here to Miami. My next question to him was, why?
What the hell is wrong with you?
What the hell did you do that for?
Did you fall on your head? Oh,
honey, what the fuck did you come down here for?
Did you lose your helmet?
I'm always telling people why. Don't ever leave where you're from to come here.
Oh, but it is a different vibe down there. It is. I mean, when you go there for vacation, I go there every time.
And that's my thing. Listen, if this was still Miami of the 90s, I probably wouldn't feel this way. But this, yeah, but because
the movie
it has, because I know, because it has, I know, but because it actually has become so much more touristy,
right?
And transient, it has definitely become a place more, in my opinion, to vacation. It's become very expensive. It is very expensive to live here.
But
so I feel
they did it on purpose, though, didn't they?
Most likely. I mean, they keep building condos. So what does that?
Well,
tell
that was
you?
the thing too, was because it was the place to be, and then of course it is. Of course,
it
when
is.
you're in your 20s and 30s.
Yeah.
But if you're still in Miami in your 50s, the culture is going to change because guess what? You're in your 50s now.
Yeah.
And so life got in the way.
And don't get me wrong, being in Miami, the culture is still very different. So what you think of being in your 50s is really not being in your 50s down here, because the 50-year-olds down here are acting just as crazy as the 20-year-olds. I mean, that's Miami. That's just the way it is. But I personally have just never been that way. I was never a partier. I really, aside from, the couple of drinks that I seem to have here on the streams, and that's really only because I need it for liquid courage because of my anxiety of coming on camera. For the most part, I really am not much of a drinker. I'm not a partier. It's not my thing. So that's another reason why I just don't feel like I fit in down here. I don't feel like I just don't feel like I'm on the same level as everyone down here. So aside, and also not only that, but when you're a Hispanic that virtually speaks no Spanish, it makes life very difficult down here.
Yeah, no,
very difficult down here.
It was very much that way in California.
Yeah,
very much that way. I mean, even so much to the extent that the expectation was that everyone spoke a little Spanish.
I mean, I can curse you out in Spanish, but that's about as far as it can go. And I can order food in Spanish, but to sit there and have a conversation, like, I am so happy that my grandparents, for the most part, all spoke English. 3 out of the 4 spoke it fluently, so it was very easy for me to be able to communicate with my Cuban grandparents. But if
both sets are from Cuba?
yes, all born in
Oh.
Cuba. Hmm. Hmm.
Are both sets your okay,
My
so both
parents
sets of your parents are both your parents born in
My
Cuba
parents
or
are my parents are both born in Cuba, but they did not come. They came over here when they were like 2 or 3 years old. I mean, they have
okay.
no memory of Cuba,
But what
and they didn't even come to Miami first. I don't
is
believe.
this is this when Cuba was still good or prospering or was
It
this
was like
after
it was on the cusp of we
on the
need to
cusp?
get the
They
fuck out of
fled.
here.
They fled.
Yes,
Okay.
but
I
it
got
was all by plane. It was all legal, and it wasn't
Oh
anything
yeah,
like
yeah.
what you hear trying to get across, in the ocean. No, it wasn't anything like that. No,
Or out of Afghanistan or something.
they were able to leave like just in time. Thank God. Thank God.
Right. Yeah. Well, good. Outstanding. So what exactly, if you don't mind me asking, what is it about being on camera that bugs you? Because if you don't mind me asking, because of the I have to ask, and before we get to
Oh,
the
I don't care. You
chats,
can ask me anything.
no,
No, I'm
because
being serious. You can literally ask me anything. I really don't
in
care.
your bio it says that you're an aspiring actress. Are you still aspiring, or is that part of the journey of
Obviously with the
that's where you
pandemic
would like to
that's
end up?
obviously with the pandemic that's had to be put on hold because it's been very difficult. Not only that, but I feel like there's not a lot of opportunity here to be taking any kind of acting classes also here in Miami, so
Mm.
another reason why I want to move. um The funny part is what I find hilarious is that I think a lot of people think that just because people are actors that they have all this confidence in the world, which is hardly the case. If you read a lot of actor bios, a lot of them suffer from anxiety. A lot of them are shy as fuck. A lot of
Oh,
them
I know.
got into acting to open up.
I'm gonna have to
And
bleep
that's kind
that
of
young
me.
lady.
What?
I said I'm gonna have to bleep that young lady.
Oh, I'm
My
sorry.
audience is not going to appreciate that kind of fucking language. I'm
I'm
sorry.
so sorry.
Kidding. I'm kidding.
I know. But look, I I suffer from what I like to call the ugly duckling syndrome. I, in my personal opinion, of course, my parents being, typical parents will tell you always otherwise because, you're perfect in your parents' eyes and you're so beautiful. But look, I personally don't think I was attractive when I was younger. I got teased to hell and back in middle school. I was no boy's first pick ever, not even really in high school, honestly. So funny. I just had a conversation about this with some friends of mine. When that seems to be the public opinion from your peers, the people that you're going to school with, mind you, not only that, I went to Catholic school, and all the kids that I went to school with from the age of 4, I graduated high school with as well. So
How many? How many?
by the
Your
time
graduating class.
my graduating class in high school was about 365 kids.
That's the cutest damn thing I've ever heard of.
My 8th grade class, like 108.
Mm.
And about
Oh,
98% of my 8th grade class
and this is in
went to high school. Went to the same high school. It was like if you
this
went
is in
here,
Miami.
you were going to go there. Yeah. It was that kind
Wow.
of thing. It was that kind of
Roman
thing.
Catholic or cafeteria Catholic, if you don't mind me asking.
I don't
You
even know what that means, what
you
the
don't know what that
difference
means.
is. No, I don't even know what that difference is.
The reason I ask, and
It was all
my
pick and
Catholic
choose anyway,
friends
so it doesn't
will
matter.
be laughing right now. If you have old school Catholic parents, grandparents, whatever have you. My dad was
Hmm.
born in 35, so my dad was like the grandparents' age, or a young grandparent type thing.
Right.
Anyways, but he was Roman Catholic, and
Hmm.
so, but he was Roman Catholic who was very happy for the Vatican 2.0.
Okay.
And not to get too much into it, when it sort of changed and it modernized and it went through kind of,
Hmm.
he was like, okay, cool. But he was already transitioning away from it. My point is that my aunts and my uncles and stuff and my grandma, they were very old school about it. Did you go to
Right.
a school that was old school about Catholicism? The slapping on the hands, the
No, 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 no. I mean,
stereotypical, the nuns and the.
by the time I was okay, so my dad went to the exact same school. the exact same, because it was an
Mm.
elementary middle school, so it was all the same. It ran from pre-K all the way to 8th grade. Okay.
Wow, that's
He
cool.
went he went to the exact same school because that school's been around, I
Did you?
think, since the 50s or 60s.
But your mom didn't go there.
My mom did not go to that school.
Mm.
She actually went to public school. My dad
Mm.
did not. Well, he went to public school in high school, but he went to that school. And at the time that he was at the school, it was still all of that, nuns and, corporal
So
punishment.
he's
But by the time I got there, no, that had ended.
he saw your mom like she goes to public school. I
My
got me a
parents met at
public
a
school girl.
discotheque.
Oh,
Met at a
really? Did they
discotheque.
meet in high school?
No, no,
No,
no.
they just years after
No,
this.
they
Oh,
met.
okay.
Yeah, they met in adulthood. Yeah, yeah, literally met
Could
at a
you imagine
discotheque.
though? Because I had friends like that. We had all kinds of schools around us. They weren't called charter schools and stuff. They were called
Yeah.
private schools,
Hmm.
but they were every bit what charter school is now.
Yeah.
But yeah, and it was the you would have those guys, of course, that would say, "Oh, my girlfriend goes to X school,"
Right.
which of course no one knows, but we know it's around here.
Hmm.
And you're like, "Oh yeah," it's the equivalent of saying you had a girlfriend in Canada.
Yeah.
You know, oh, you'll never meet her, but
You'll know.
that kind
Yeah.
of
Uh-huh.
conversation, right?
Yep.
Exactly. But so when we would play, but when we would play against all these, we would have like inner league play of all sports. And so every so often, a Catholic school would come up, and we would look forward to it so much as guys in high school
The
playing
uniforms.
sports. So it's that, yes, the cheerleaders that came out. We were like, oh my god, because it was every bit college level. Their cheerleader every single time, not just how they look, but but that's what we were doing. Because the girls at your high school, you're
Obviously.
like, but it was their like. They were ready for college. I mean, you've seen
Right.
those
Oh yeah.
movies and those championships and all. It was that. I mean, and
Hmm.
you're doing like JV soccer, and these girls are like on point. Like their A team is playing for playing for the JV
Yeah.
soccer team, like on a Thursday or some shit. Not even in front of a stadium. So it was a big deal. But yeah, they were private schools down by the beach.
Right.
So in California, it was, California girl type of mentality. So that was like,
Gotcha.
which Catholic school's coming? So that between that and the Hispanic factor, it had some of us white
Going
boys back in
crazy.
the 80s and 90s going absolutely bonkers. Yeah. So
Oh man.
as far as the blending goes, what
Hmm.
kind of, to use a 2021 terminology, what kind of diversity was in? So we're talking the 90s with you
Hmm.
in what, high school, right? The 90s.
I
What kind of
went.
diversity we're looking at?
So in high school, I was 2000 to 2004. Those were my high school years. Yeah, I know. I'm so
E-
sorry. Does that
Even
hurt
worse than
you?
I thought.
Does that hurt you? I'm so
I'm just kidding.
sorry.
Hold on, keep talking. I needed oxygen. 2000, really?
Yeah, I
My
started as a
goodness.
freshman in 2000. I graduated in '04 from high
Mm,
school. When I went, high school was more diverse because when I was in middle school and elementary school, because of where the school was located, that was predominantly Hispanic.
hmm
But then when I got to high school, it was very mixed of Hispanic and African American. So it was very, very diverse, which was great. I mean, I loved it,
Right.
because I was, especially for me as somebody, somebody who was always called the gringo of the group because I didn't speak Spanish. It was great for me to be in a more diverse area because now, okay, right now it's not just predominantly Hispanic anymore. I can find a little bit more of a crew, and it wasn't just Hispanic and Black, but there was also a couple of. We actually did have a couple of, like, I guess if you want to say white people sprinkled in there. We actually had, which was really
You had
funny
a
being
few
a Catholic
tokens.
school. Well, what was weird for me is we did have we were
They
a
were all
Catholic school,
Irish,
but
weren't they?
we had one Jewish student, which I thought was really interesting considering we were a Catholic school. I thought that was
They
always
weren't.
really interesting.
You'd know if they were Irish. There'd be 12 of them at a Catholic school. It's the
But no,
O'Brien.
that's actually one of the things that I do like about Miami is, and in a sense also one of the things that I don't like is that we do kind of live us in a bit of a bubble. You know what I mean? Because we are so diverse, I think sometimes people do forget that there are other things that are going on outside of here. I don't want to get into it because again, I don't want to go any deeper than that.
Right.
But no, I actually have liked that part about living in Miami because it's made me very open to other cultures.
Mhm.
We were just discussing, I love to travel. As much as I have, again, to add to the long list of phobias that I have, I hate flying, but I also don't want that to limit me. So I very
Right.
much love to travel. We spoke, recently how I have been to Paris. I absolutely loved going over there, being on cruises. I've been to Cozumel, Mexico. I've been to the islands. I've been to, oh my God, I've been to Aruba. I've been to Curacao. I've been St. Martin, really beautiful.
Mhm.
Jamaica. Love, it's great. And you get to see so many different cultures and meet so many different kinds of people. So I'm very open minded when it comes to that. So for that, I am actually grateful for living in Miami in that sense.
Well, right on.
Yeah. I think it has made me very open minded.
Yeah, very cool. Yeah, and I think that especially especially with what can happen growing
Hmm.
up when you feel drawn to things that aren't
Right.
popular
Hmm.
with the group of kids at your time.
Hmm.
So some of us kind of fall in
Right.
between things or
Hmm.
whatever, and then there are others that sort of boop, you stick
Right.
out because the culture is so. And I see it a lot with even our girls and stuff. And even though
Yeah.
they do their thing, and especially the way I am, my wife's just she's very very similar in that regard, as far as allowing them to sort of experience life in that fashion. But we're
Right.
thankful that they're not girls growing up in California and concerned with keeping up with the Kardashians or things like that.
Oh,
And
please.
that mentality. So like, not that we tried to raise nerd girls, you know
Hmm.
what I'm saying? But it was
Right.
like
Right.
we didn't ever hold them. We didn't pigeonhole them to
Right.
anything,
Right.
and we just let them do. I want to do this. I want
You
to try
let
this.
them develop their own personality, their own
Right.
interests, as
My
it should be.
oldest daughter was very good and very interested in soccer at an early age, and was on
Hmm.
a pay team, and she traveled and all that stuff. And then our youngest was like, "I want to play soccer too," and she got out that
Monkey see,
she's
monkey
they're
do.
3 years apart, and
Oh,
so
that's
by
me
the
and my
time
sister.
really
Three and a
by the
half.
time
Yeah. That's so
the
funny.
by the time our youngest was old enough to play her
Hmm.
first game, I'm not even kidding you, she found a friend on the other team and they held hands the entire
Oh,
time.
so cute.
It was extremely difficult
That's
being her coach watching
adorable.
your daughter.
Oh.
While her older sister, we called her older sister Bear, nicknamed her Bear, right? Because she would lean forward when she ran, and she was
Like a
like this,
stalking look.
right? She was like this, like fast halfback,
Oh my God.
and wasn't afraid to get physical. And of course, at that age, everyone's like, "Oh, I'm so sorry," especially in free ball, where like
Yes.
it's all free and community and it's all neighborhood stuff. Everyone,
Yeah.
the referees blow the whistle for if you like pass someone too quickly, they blow the whistle or something. And she was like just not throwing elbows, but like she's physical, like I'm getting the ball. And there was another girl with the same name as her on the team, and I
Oh
called her
boy.
Bear at home. And so it stuck. And the family members and the dads, everybody on our side was like, "Go Bear, go." But that's how it was, right? But we didn't. And then our little one gets up there, and we're like, and so there were sisters of like, because I coached both girls.
That's
And so,
great.
of course, the younger sisters are not, they're like, "Oh, hey, you're coaching them too." Yeah, I'm coaching my youngest too. Oh, cool. First game, they're like, "Quite a youngest daughter you got there." Yeah, she's special.
What a pip.
This may not
Oh,
be for her, but she's trying it out. Community ball. We're not paying anything or whatever. She did very well in practice, but game time,
oh,
she
I
found that
am.
friend, man. It was the funniest. We got
I
videos
am
from
not a
it.
sports person.
But did you, because there were aspects of that. You were, for lack of a better term, for lack of, not to put too fine a point on it, pigeonholed to an extent. Like, wait a minute, you're not checking the box here, right? Like, there were things that you were interested in that perhaps family wasn't as necessarily as supportive, or there wasn't that backbone necessarily of
My
being
parents
comfortable liking certain things.
More and more, my parents keep telling me you have always marched to the beat of your own drum, for sure, always.
Right.
So,
How do you take that? I mean, do you take it differently now as yourself, current age versus like when you're 10?
I don't know how to take it. I don't take it in an insulting manner
Hmm.
at all. Maybe when I was younger, I probably would have because, you know, I was so tortured in school. So of course I just wanted to fit in, and then I'm being told by my parents
Right.
that,
But you missed
you're
what's
different.
interesting.
You're not like everybody else. And
Right.
my mom has always been like, let your freak flag fly, because my mom was a nerd herself and she wasn't popular either. And my mom's very even keeled, and she's always been kind of like, fuck what everybody thinks. And this and
Right.
that. And
Right.
I just, in a lot of ways, I'm like my mom, but that's the one way I'm not like my mom. I am a little bit more like my dad. What is everybody thinking? Oh my God, what if I do this and they think that? And I'm always worried about what people think. You know what I mean? And I don't know
Mhm.
why I shouldn't be that way, but it's just been, I've led such a long life of being a people pleaser, and that's where it comes from. And
Right.
this absolute fear of being hated by anybody,
Right.
I honestly cannot stand. It bothers me, and I don't know why. I'm trying to get over that. More and more, I am starting to be of kind of like, I really just don't give a shit anymore. I
Well, that's
really
good.
just don't
That's
have
very
time
good.
for this anymore. I
It's
can't lose.
contagious. It's
I
going
know.
around. That's behind the
I
scenes
don't
for.
know if the pandemic has just given me the time to kind of reflect on that, and then being recently divorced and being on my own for the first time. I don't know if it's just kind of opened my eyes to that, but now, and then I guess also finding, to lead up to this, and finding, Scarif Podcast and Ro and Brad
Mhm.
bringing me into this, and finding all of you wonderful nerdy people and making me feel comfortable in my own skin, and it's okay to be an absolute dork, and me cracking jokes constantly, whether they land or not. But you guys let me be me, and that's great.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
You
No,
know?
it's fantastic, and I think that it's important, especially in today's day and age where
Yeah.
um so many of us, because of the masks and things, like it's hard to
Hmm.
communicate in person, and that
Yeah.
the technology we're having to rely on to.
Hmm.
And even my mother-in-law is getting smart on stuff because she's communicating. She doesn't want to travel because she's in her 70s now, and
Wow.
although she didn't rush to get the vaccine or anything, she was
Hmm.
very meticulous in researching things. And
Right.
she she made her own decision, but she's in that group. She's
Right.
in her mid 70s, so that kind of thing. But she didn't want to travel because her younger sister, a few years younger than her, Alzheimer's and those kinds of things, and so she doesn't want to
My
complicate
grandmother.
those
My
kind. Right.
grandmother's currently suffering, unfortunately, from the
You
same.
don't want to
I get it.
add to that. It
I
would
get it.
be. I couldn't imagine if they, because she's my wife's aunt.
Hmm.
She's so far gone that anything like that would be devastating, I think. But on that note,
Alzheimer's, it's a bitch, isn't it? It's
oh
it's
my
an
god,
awful disease.
it's
It's
very
really
hard.
an awful
And
disease.
yeah, and my heart does go out.
I'm emotionally
Right.
preparing myself for the day, because I try and call my grandmother every week like clockwork, and I'm waiting for that day where she doesn't know who she's talking to anymore. I'm
Hmm.
getting
Hmm.
myself ready for that. So it's going to come.
It's tough.
I'm
It's
waiting for
tough.
it. I know.
It's
I
tough as
know. It's amazing
we
what
li-
she remembers and what she doesn't remember. It's fascinating and sad at the same time, but
it is.
yeah. But
It
we were
is.
lucky to have her for as long as we did, so I can't complain. You know what I mean?
Hmm. Yeah, no, it's those moments. It's creating those moments like we were
Yeah,
talking about
I
before.
have to be grateful for the time that we had her. So,
Most definitely. Speaking of grateful,
hmm,
let's check out all these wonderful people who are in chat right now
sure.
before we move on, because there are
Oh
a
my
lot of
God.
things
There's a
that I
lot of
want to
laughing
dive
emojis.
a little bit
What else
deeper.
going on?
They're entertaining themselves, of course. You
Yeah,
jumped
I
in
see
there.
that.
Red 5 is here. Thank you very much. Looks like I think Ro must be manning the old business over there. We got
For
Alan's here.
real.
Thank you, Alan. He says, "Hey, what's going on, friends?" We got Sith Care Bear. Oops.
Hey, Josh.
Did you hear that?
What?
That was just in my ears. Sorry,
Oh,
I hit a button, and all of a
are you having a
sudden I
moment?
heard
You
Salty
okay?
in my ear going,
Oh,
"The podcast you're listening to is part of the Red 5 Network." I just all of a sudden heard that in my ear. And, okay, I embarrassed myself enough.
it's okay.
But Sith
I do that all the
Care
time.
Bear Josh, hey, you're not late, everybody. No one's late.
No one's-
Everybody's on time. This, go back, watch the replay. We're glad you're here. Backyard TARDIS, what's going on, man?
Peeps.
Just hanging out. Yep. Everybody's just having fun.
It's funny that anyone uses that word anymore.
Peeps.
Peeps.
Who has bad rhythm?
I don't know. I don't know what he's talking about. I just told him to
Yeah,
shut up.
We were too deep. Shut up, Josh.
He's a buddy of mine. It's fine.
Too deep in our
That's how I talk to my friends.
convo. Oh yeah, no.
If I insult you, it's with nothing but love. Believe me. You want to be insulted by me. Look how I talk to Ro.
You should one time. I know it's not your thing. The content of what we're doing is absolutely. What's funny is my wife will put it on. She'll Twitch. She doesn't care about the game at all. She doesn't give fuck all about the games, Star Wars, nothing. Not a drip. Nothing. She'll go, good movie. And that, right?
Good movie.
That's my life. But anyways, so what she'll do, but she'll put it on to hear, because she's never heard it before. And it's a little insight. It's not quite from my kids just yet, but it's kind of like a diary about how me and my friends talk to each other. And it is absolutely fucking horrible. It is horrible, but it's because we love each other and we are just shitty to each other constantly. I mean,
you should hear my family, just the four of us, my parents and my sister and myself. Oh my God.
But
we rip each other apart.
Yeah, three military dudes, 2 Army dudes, and a Marine. And we all met separately outside the military at a different job. But yeah, and and that's just the stuff. That's the stuff we feel comfortable with because we know we're streaming.
You're right.
That's always like, oh shit, did I? Because I've gone back and I've watched some of that stuff and I'm like, oh, I've got to have said something, because we'd get going and we get each other just laughing because we're just like, and it does, because in the military, it's not that everything's racial. It's just that racial was part of everything. So all of the ragging you would do on each other, moms and brothers, and you're so dumb, or any of that stuff, or you're really bad at shooting, or you're bad at your job. There's always a pecking order because you're trying to get that competitiveness. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And it is sometimes you just have to dig and dig and dig and finally get that reaction. So sometimes it is
you finally push that button.
You have to needle man. Well, sometimes you do it psychologically. Sometimes you do it much like a teacher would when you're a sergeant. Right. You're trying to get them to do or come to a realization of something or whatever it is on their own, because you telling them, much like your own kids,
of course,
you can tell them all day. And it's not,
no.
I tell them once they got old enough, I started saying, just so you're aware, I know you're not going to listen to me, but I have to know that I said it. So I'm going to say it. Don't cross the street. Look both ways. You're not going to listen to me, but I have to say it.
But so when you get run over,
right? When the cops show up, did you ever tell them? Oh yeah, 3 or 4 times. And I told them.
Well, she's in a back brace now, so I mean, come on. Hey, no, it's true.
I'm just kidding. It's just, but it's like that though, when you're just like, but yeah, one thing I wanted to, we've touched on some points that will eventually bring us to the main topic.
Oh boy.
Teasing it for the end.
Okay.
But you find yourself an aspiring actress. That's something that you would like to see yourself doing.
Yes.
Now with that though, and having the anxiety of performing on camera or performing on audio or those kinds of things, how do you make that leap? Is it full blown part of the journey? You know what I'm saying? Like you've really just thrown that marker out there saying, this is where I want to end up, and you were just trudging through.
I don't even know how to answer that.
I'm not Oprah. I said I
I
wasn't
know.
going to be Oprah.
I
I'm
know. I
just
know. I
saying.
know.
But I'm just, you know what I mean? Like, I'm curious. I'm honestly, as your friend, someone who, we met
I have
in
been
in
wanting to
Chicago. It's
I have been wanting to do this for a very long time. In fact, we stumbled upon a home video a couple of months ago, my parents and I. I must have been about 6 or 7 years old. My mom is literally doing my hair. I'm getting ready to go into our little pool, and I am saying, they say on the video, my name is Chantal, and I don't want to be a lawyer. I want to be an actress. I don't know why, what happened at that age that I don't know what the fuck I must have watched that led to that, but it's been
what was
in
the
me.
lawyer thing? Were you being
Uh,
pushed to
I,
be a lawyer?
no. I had always for some reason as a child, I wanted to be a lawyer. Why? Maybe I didn't know what that actually entailed or what that meant. It could be, again, from watching maybe way too much television,
Cool briefcases.
even as a young kid. But
Lawyers have cool
I,
briefcases, so maybe that
yeah,
was the thing.
I also, movies have always been a very big part of my life because my family has always been very huge on movies. My parents went to the movies all the time when they were dating and stuff like that. My grandparents were big on movies. They took me and my sister to the movies all the time. It was one of the reasons why we loved sleeping over at their house because they took us to the movies. We could watch all the fucking Nick at Night that we wanted. So comedy is a big deal. I'm sorry.
I'm
Is this
glad.
too many F-bombs for you?
No, I'm just
Oh,
glad
okay.
you finished that sentence because it was like you
Why?
just let us watch the fucking, and I was like,
So
oh,
sorry.
grandpa,
Yeah, yeah.
grandpa
So
had
dirty,
the
dirty grandpa. No. So
he had all them channels. I understand. No, I'm just kidding.
yeah. So, just watching, movies and so much television, watching
Right.
these actors and seeing these worlds being created. And then of course getting into Star Wars as well and watching Star Wars at such a young age because it was played on TV all the time like it still is now. Watching the Ewok adventure on Disney,
God bless TBS.
watching I know, and
Especially
USA
on holidays,
and
right? Especially.
TNT, and watching or Battle of Endor. I mean, I watched all of that as a kid, not knowing really what the fuck I was watching, but just being mesmerized and loving it. And the
Well,
music,
because
I've always been a music person too, so a lot of that is very much goes hand in hand. I used to dance ballet, so music has always been a very big performing has always been a very big part of my life. I did dance ballet, so I've always been kind of a ham in that sense, but
right,
when
but
it
do you
comes to
see
having to
yourself?
be myself, that's the issue. I don't like being myself. Now, getting into a costume, having to play a character, slipping into that, that's a whole totally different story. When I
Right,
put on a costume for Halloween, I feel like a completely different person. I
right.
feel that performing side coming out of me. But when it has to be something like this, having to be myself, it's nerve wracking. It's gotten better. I
Mhm.
wasn't nervous at all tonight to come on, so that's good. And I think that's obviously come like with anything else. It comes with practice, and the more you do something, the less nerve wracking it becomes. So I've already done a couple
Oh,
of live streams.
yeah. No,
Becomes
they're
less
fun.
and less. Yeah, it is. It is.
It yeah, it becomes less nerve wracking.
Mm-hmm.
I think the nerve wracking aspect is when you're part of the broadcasting team.
Yeah.
So when it's you and your stuff, like now,
Yeah.
like me, for example, and then the technical aspects of it, having that stress
Mm-hmm.
and interactions and trying to be, all versus being a guest or being on a
Right.
panel and talking about Matrix or any number of things that. But you know what I'm saying? It's a different ball of wax than
I
when.
actually get more nervous recording the podcast now, believe it or not, than doing the live streams, which makes entirely no sense.
Yeah.
None
Well,
whatsoever. I don't know why.
that's good though.
I don't know if it's because the podcast is more structured. So, and me being so OCD and a perfectionist, I feel more of a need to be perfect and no room for error kind of thing, even though I very well know that Ro tells me all the time, it's okay, just go. He can edit it and he's great at editing. So I really shouldn't worry that much. But
Hmm.
something about this, just having a casual conversation, it's not as, I hate to use the word, but it's not as threatening, I guess, is what I'm trying to say.
Well,
I
good.
like,
Yeah.
I
No.
feel really comfortable right now, honestly.
This listening to having been a part of the raw
Hmm.
aspect of it, and then listening to the final product, it's a
It's
privilege to
yeah,
it's like, the production value that goes into
it's
it. Mine,
interesting. Yeah,
right? It and the level that, well, we'll get into that. We'll get into that in just a minute. Yeah, I was going to go down a road, but there's one thing I wanted to circle back on.
sure.
Um, so with the let's see. Okay, maybe oops, that's not the right one. Never mind. Um, so when we bring it all back, you find
Hmm.
yourself. We're looking at probably the late 2000s. Okay,
Hmm.
when did you see? So you're out of high school.
Hmm.
Did you do the college thing? Did you hang out at home? What did you do right after high school?
So after high school, I did try to do the college thing. Um,
There locally.
there, look, yeah, I didn't go away. I did get into a university, Florida International University, FIU. And unfortunately, having gone from, you know, the strictness of being in a Catholic school and very rigid and this and that to now suddenly going to college and having all this freedom and not having to go to class until 2 o'clock in the afternoon and this and this and that. And now also tack on the fact that I have a car because I did not get a car until after I graduated high school. Because of where my birthday landed and stuff, it didn't make sense for me to only have the car for 1 year of high school instead of two. And my dad, being a smart man, didn't want to pay the insurance, which I totally understood. And he's like, "You're going to need the car more for college than you're going to need it for high school anyway. Plenty of your friends drive, hitch a ride with them. Not a problem." I didn't care as long as I finally got to drive. And unfortunately, having gone to Catholic school and being in such a small pond my whole life to then going from a graduating class of 365 students to then being in an auditorium setting classroom with 300 students
Mm-hmm.
and not getting attention from the teacher and not knowing who I am, not knowing what I even wanted to do because what I really wanted to do, my parents didn't want me to do, which was anything having to do with film, acting. They didn't want me doing anything like that. They wanted me to be more practical. I was
So
going to study
you're more geared towards film and TV, or film, not TV.
film,
But
acting. I really don't care. Anything that has to do with any of that, I'm down for.
would you
I'm
do the
fascinated by
stage,
all of it. Theater is the one thing I would not do. I
theater?
wouldn't. You will never see
Right.
me doing a play. That I don't think
That's
I could do. That's
that's
tough.
rough.
That's
That's
really
rough.
rough.
Weeks on end.
That's
Yeah.
really nerve wracking. As opposed to you're on set, you can do multiple takes. It's fine. When you're doing a play and it's live, you mess up,
It's
that could
fun
mess
though.
up your whole
If you
rhythm.
Well, I did drama and those kinds of things in
I took
school.
drama
So
class in high school. That was about it.
junior high and high school
Yeah.
and film stuff,
Hmm.
extracurricular shit.
Right.
And yeah, to practice for one play
Hmm.
is, hey babe, to practice for one play
Yeah.
every semester is no big deal.
Right. Right.
But the thought of doing that crap
Hmm.
like for 2 years, Cats, how long did Cats go, or Phantom of the Opera, or any of these other things? I mean, it's not the same actors, don't get me wrong,
I don't
but they
even know
do
why Cats
run.
exists.
I understand, but I mean the the whole thing of doing that spectacle, right? And that's what I'm talking about. The go back in the day, and it's a
Hmm.
little, it's before you, but you would have known people who would have been into it. I think it didn't come out, when you would have probably been into it, but
Right.
Phantom of the Opera and the
I love
resurgence
Phantom
of
of
all
the
that
Opera.
stuff, and
Yeah.
Broadway, and people now writing again for Broadway,
Hmm.
where it hadn't been a thing for so long
Right.
because everyone had shifted to movies. Um,
Which is sad because I love musicals. I love Broadway. I just would never do
right.
it.
So what exact, if you specifically, where do you see yourself acting wise? Like how,
I want to do
the
movies. That's always been my thing. I've always wanted to
because
do movies.
right. Well, okay. So we have, the
Hmm.
being anxious about different things, and those games we've touched on those. We
Yeah.
bring you into your 20s, you're at FIU, and you find yourself, kind of really opening up in that sense, where do you go from, and to use your words,
Hmm.
but when did you find yourself becoming self-aware? And when I say
Like
that,
this is what I need to do.
well, just that it's kind of the culmination of kind of what you want to do,
Hmm.
but also that you're a woman. You know what I'm saying? Like that culmination of like how you felt growing up, where you were like,
Yeah.
oh, quote unquote, the ugly
Hmm.
duckling and that kind of thing. But then you get to that point where you're in college and you're in
Hmm.
classrooms and everyone's
Hmm.
coming from different areas and that kind of
Right.
thing. And the looks across the auditoriums and
Hmm.
as you're walking from class to class, when do you have experiences like that you point back to? Like
Well, first of
you,
all, I didn't last long enough because I ended up getting kicked out because I went so little, because I
mm,
hated it. I had such anxiety about it. I became so utterly depressed
mm,
that I would literally drive all the way to the school,
mm-hmm,
and I would just hang out in the parking lot or hang out with my friends in between classes, completely skipping class. The school was actually near a mall that had a movie theater, and there would literally be times where I would literally skip out on class and I would go to the movies instead.
go see a
And
movie.
that's how I would cope, because I knew eventually like the shit is gonna hit the fan, because I was still living with my parents and I had a Bright Future scholarship and Florida
Mm-hmm.
prepaid and all this stuff, and I just didn't know what I wanted to do. I was just so confused, and just dealing with so many personal issues, and I ended up getting kicked out, which is fine. And my parents obviously, school was a big thing, a big deal for them, and I understood that.
Mm-hmm.
But when you can't do what you want to do, and then feel forced to have to study something that you don't really want to study just to appease, then you're not going to really give it your all, which is the reason why I only have an
Right.
associate's degree in secondary education mathematics, because I never, as much as the idea of being a teacher is very noble and it's a beautiful thing, and I love kids, I'm very motherly and this and that, and I had a wonderful high school teacher who helped me through some really serious shit, and I really wanted to kind of have that effect.
Give back. Yeah.
But at the same point, I got to work for a living.
Mm-hmm.
Teachers are paid absolutely fucking nothing, and it's a real shame.
9 months out of the year.
And yeah, it's a thankless job. It really is, and it's so much more than teaching students and dealing with students. You're dealing with the administration. You're dealing with the parents. I did 30 hours at a school that I had to do for my classes. I did 15 hours in my high school, and I did 15 hours in my public school. And all the teachers that I spoke to all had the same complaints, dealing with the parents. And I said,
Mm-hmm.
never mind. I don't want to do this. I don't want to
Yeah,
do this.
that's the
I don't want to
my
do this, because if the parents are bad, that means that I'm dealing also with the children of those parents, and I don't want to deal with your child and you at the same time, because I will jump out a window. So I nixed that.
chump
And then I
jump
just
out.
dove right into working. I dove
Right.
right into working. I became a bankruptcy paralegal. It kind of landed on my lap, and I've been in the mortgage industry for the last 12 years.
Right. And
That's what I
that
that's what I
goes
do. That is my actual job. Yeah, I've been doing that for a long time. I've done all sorts of stuff in the mortgage industry.
but that's kind of I there are bits and pieces that I've been
Hmm.
picking up along the way, and then I see some things that you tweet and stuff, and because the Red Five, I have a list of Red Five Network.
Hmm.
So everybody who tweets, I don't know how the list is there. I happened to click on lists,
Uh-huh.
and there was
I'm
a
so
red.
sorry, because I
I
tweet
don't
a
know if
lot.
I don't know.
So sorry.
So I no, I'm the one who should be apologizing because I started going through. I once I found it and I started doing it, and I started seeing like everyone. Bless their hearts. Everyone's just like there's so whatever it is, whatever it is, they're extremely excited about it, and I
Bless them.
it yeah, it's fantastic.
Exactly. I
Trust
know. I
me when
get
I
it.
tell you, I
You're
really
so
need that.
passionate, man.
And I'm scrolling through, and everyone that I see mine, I'm like, oh, it's like dark cloud, happy, 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 dark cloud. Well, oh, it's Bravo. Okay, I'm like, damn it. So there's a lot of stuff I'm just like, now I don't comment on because I'm like, I don't want to hear it.
I
Kind
get
of, you
it.
know what it is? What it is when because I do understand what my wife is saying, but when we and my buddies get together, the language we use and the way that we
Mhm.
talk and how loud we get, she's just like, my God, you need to presence of mind a little bit.
Rein it in, guys. Rein it in.
Right, right. But it's that level of I don't know, it just that it's
I don't
almost
know,
zen
man.
like, you
I,
know, where
I,
you
I
have that with
yeah.
friends and you sort of lose that. Do you find yourself gravitating more? Does it help you to put in pulling out of your shell? Not only in finding people who have
Hmm.
similar passions that you
Hmm.
do, but people
Yeah.
who have similar aspirations as you do, because not to put too fine a point on it, but anybody who has a YouTube channel, they're kind of moving in a direction. You know what I'm
Right.
saying?
Right.
No one's really expecting much, depending on how
Hmm.
much work you put into it. But it would be nice if someone saw you and did something with you, and that kind of thing.
I got it.
However, so we're all here, right?
Yeah.
But you didn't start here visually. You started, for
On the
lack of a better
podcast.
term, right, on the Scarif podcast. How did you? So you're out there in Twitterverse, right?
Hmm.
How do you come across them jokers for the very first time? What's your interaction? How did you
Well,
first
I
come
I am
across them?
I am a following nut. I'm very big on pop culture and following. I know it might be silly to some, but following celebrities, actor, all that, whatever. And then of course, just hey Frank. And then of course, just following in following movies and following Star Wars stuff and this and that. I'm trying to remember. I think I started following conversations first. I think that's who I started, and I don't know how that happened. Somebody that must have been following me already must have retweeted something from them. And then, of course, in all of the retweeting and, looking at Star Wars stuff and things like that myself on Twitter, I ended up seeing the Scarif podcast and just, some of the things that Ro was posting. I decided to finally go ahead and listen to a couple of episodes. I don't have a car now, but when I did have a car during the pandemic, which was stupid to have, I would listen to it in my car. And I actually started from the beginning. I started from episode 1. I haven't finished, but I did start from episode 1 because of my OCD. I always feel like I need to start from the beginning. So I didn't want to start from like wherever they were currently at. And
Mm-hmm.
as I started listening, which is something that I tend to do when I listen to a podcast, especially in the car, I found myself talking to the radio. And at some points, even getting a little, not necessarily angry at anything that Ro and Brad were saying, but maybe them commenting on something that maybe they saw on Twitter and me just exploding in the car and be like, who the hell is this person? And no, you can't look at it this way. And no, and just going off on my own radio. And it got to the point where I started commenting and I don't know what it was. They posted something, and I guess in passing I made a joke saying like, oh, what I would love to come on or something like that. I could talk about Star Wars all day long.
Mm-hmm.
And they said, well, I told them, I said I have a
Don't
podcast mic because I wanted to do it my own podcast, but I didn't know what to do. I had the mic for almost a year, and I didn't know what to do honestly. And the thought of me doing a podcast by myself was so nerve wracking that I gave up. And I had a friend that was going to do it with me, but he was so flaky that I had to give up on it. And I'm like, I can't do this by myself. I'm too self conscious. So I said that I wanted to talk about, the comedy of Star Wars and parodies and things like that, because comedy is very, very important to me. It's always been a huge part of my family. We love to laugh. Comedy's always been a big thing for me. So I wanted to talk about like the comedy of Star Wars and, do you get offended when people do parodies of Star Wars, like,
mm-hmm.
Family Guy or Spaceballs? And,
Faking Star Wars. These guys right here,
Uh-huh.
fakingstarwars.net.
Yeah.
Do you follow them?
No. What's that
It's
about?
yeah, it's like the Babylon Bee of Star Wars.
Oh
They're
God.
like the OG. Yeah, I've
Yeah.
been following for years. Yeah,
That's
it's
funny.
there's multiple people, but the main dude from back in the
Mm-hmm.
day, Willie Bobo.
Mm-hmm.
It's all been Star Wars parody.
Oh, I'm
Yeah,
gonna have to look that up then.
yeah, it's going back like 3-4 years. Yeah, you
So
gotta
when
have that. You gotta have that
yeah.
that humor. You gotta be able to laugh at what
And
you're
of course,
passionate about.
Ro, he's more of, he doesn't believe that comedy should be mixed with sci-fi, even though I pointed out, well, I mean, there are moments in Star Wars itself that are funny. I mean, C-3PO and I mean, they're funny, they're hilarious. You know what I mean? I mean, I've always found myself laughing at them since I was a kid. But I told him, I said, I think personally, if you are a fan of Star Wars, you should appreciate it. Honestly, I said, I mean, Seth MacFarlane is obviously a fan of Star Wars if he was able to go that in depth and make a parody of the entire original trilogy. I think to be a fan, you should appreciate that. I loved it. I
That
think it's great because
that
you're pointing out things that even I myself have poked fun at. We've watched Star Wars so many times.
oh yeah,
Don't sit here and tell me that you don't watch it and poke slight fun of certain things. Give me a break. Don't tell me it doesn't happen. Doesn't mean
no,
I
yeah,
I hate it. Doesn't mean I'm
no,
poking. I
no,
I love it. I'm looking at
yeah.
it that intently that I can make those kind of comments. That's how I see it.
It's certainly not everybody's cup of tea, and I think that
No,
that's what
of course, and that's
that's
fine.
what it all circles
Personally,
back
I
with.
don't like sci-fi, but I don't consider Star Wars sci-fi in this
Sci
in the way that I
science
think of
fantasy.
Star Trek as sci-fi. Star Trek to
Oh
me is
yeah.
sci-fi. I
Mhm.
don't find Star Wars to be that way. It's more fantasy to me. I don't even know how to describe
Interesting.
Star Wars. Yeah, I don't feel that way, especially because of the music aspect also. It gives it this whole different vibe.
Right. Just epic sort of.
It
Yeah,
just
it
happens
is.
to be set in
Right.
space kind
Right.
of
And I
thing.
think that that's what the intriguing thing is, at least this
Hmm.
far removed from the originals and then through the
Yeah,
EU prior to the prequels, was the
right.
feeling of the humanity regardless of the background,
Hmm.
regardless of the thing standing next to me. It was the
Right.
humanity of the story and the importance of the story that was being told at the time. So the story could be told in space. It could be told with these characters that look ridiculous,
Right.
that act ridiculous, or whatever it may be. And that was the magic, was that the story in and of itself transcended the spectacle that was on the screen.
Hmm.
And for the first time, without getting all 2001, that was science fiction at the time.
Right.
Was this sort of cerebral futurist kind of mentality of,
Hmm.
well, let's make a comment. Everybody was trying to, they were either doing what Arthur Clarke, with 2001s, those kinds of things, or they would go off on a tangent and do
Right.
what, I'm trying to think, Planet of the Apes or something like that. But then on the other side of that, you have the monster aspect of it, where
Hmm.
you have these genres you have fantasy, science fiction, and horror kind of blending, where you have the
Yep.
Blob, things from outer space. You
Yep.
have body snatchers and things like
Hmm.
that, where they're intertwining all of that.
It's all subgenres.
Right. What do you find that's most so you single Star Wars out? Do you look at entertainment, your shows, your movies, those kinds of things? Do you look at them in groups, in genres, in that, like, that high of a tier, or do you
Yes.
take things?
No, I'm a total snob. I'm a
Okay.
total snob. I'm a total
Okay.
snob. There's a whole reason why
The I
there
don't
there's a
like country music kind of, like,
yeah.
as like Lock Bear, like everything. Okay.
I am very specific about how movies are categorized. There is a reason why I continue to get into a continuous battle with Ro and Frank about Jaws not being a horror movie. And
It's
everyone
a
wants to
thriller,
give me shit about it. And that's what I keep
right?
saying. It's a thriller. I don't, it's an action movie. It's drama.
Suspense, right?
I suspense. I don't consider it a horror movie. It used to offend me to hell and back when I would go to Blockbuster and see it in the horror movie section. I'm like, no, that doesn't make sense to me. So, but listen, to each their own. I get
Right.
it. I can understand why people see it as horrific, but yeah, no, when it comes to that, I am very specific about how I categorize stuff. That's why I say I can't. Shut up, Frank. I love you too. That is why. Thanks, Josh. That's why I I can't consider Star Wars sci-fi. I just cannot.
Right.
I can't put it
So
on the same level as Star Trek because
so
I feel
being a
like
snob
people
then.
think, yeah, I think people think differently when it comes to sci-fi. There's a very
So be,
specific definition.
yeah.
People are
Yes.
thinking
I
Lost
think
in
yes and no. I think
Space. You know what I mean?
right.
Like,
But along the lines of, I mean, now that I'm sort of, I
hmm
mean, I didn't intend this to be interconnected this way, but along those same lines of how science fiction, to me anyways, the blending of comedy, the blending of the genres.
hmm
There are aspects of every great movie. Um, Universally accepted as a great
hmm
movie for the most part.
yes,
You're not going to please everybody, but when you
of
talk
course,
about like a Saving Private Ryan or a Schindler's List or things like that,
right,
Braveheart comes to mind.
hmm right.
Not so much an Amadeus. It wins all kinds of awards, but it doesn't really tantalize the culture. You know, it doesn't really. It does leave a print in culture, I should say.
Right,
I'm
right. I
trying
get
to
what
say.
you mean, but it's not for the
But like a
masses.
Ben Hur really pushes the envelope as far as film goes. You know what I'm
hmm
saying? And those kinds of things. Don't you think that when we, without really noticing it, we as consumers sort of demanded a blending of all of that because of what we gave attention to? Look at the Avengers movies. They're thrilling, they're action, they're
They're funny.
ridiculous to look at. Right, exactly. They've got humor, they've got levity, they've got drama,
hmm
they've got
Yeah,
um,
yeah.
natural human qualities to them, and they're not just
I very
Holly
much
Berry.
believe we dictate what's being pumped out
Right,
to a certain
but
degree.
right. And so when we get to that point, like we are
hmm
now,
Yeah.
as a consumer, where do you see yourself fall as far as it doesn't appear like Hollywood's listening to us? So certain IPs are getting certain preferential treatment and they're being treated for whatever reason with
hmm
kid gloves still. But you have other
Like,
IPs like Star Wars, which for
right.
whatever reason they felt the need to try to experiment with.
hmm
Where do you fall in that sort of argument in fandom as far as liking bits and pieces, being able to
hmm
like bits and pieces, or it either is black or white with you? Do you sort of, where do you see yourself? Shades of gray or black and white with that?
I'd like to think I'm a little more open-minded. So, I hate to bring this up. For a perfect example, the sequel trilogy. You know what I mean? Like a lot of people love it. I personally hate it. And it's not so much because you tried something different. It's just your execution was so piss poor. It didn't jive. It didn't connect.
Right,
No, the
right,
right hand wasn't talking to the left hand kind of thing. You know what I mean? That was the
hmm,
problem. But I had
right,
no problem with you wanting to go a different direction. I have no problem with you wanting to introduce new characters. Obviously, the original trilogy, as you can see, unfortunately, literally dying off. Sad to say. You can only take that storyline so far anymore. So eventually, if you do want to keep Star Wars going, I mean, you're going to have to branch out.
right,
So I'm not opposed. I am not opposed to that. I don't like to think of myself as being so much black and white when it comes to movies. I hope not.
right. Do you think that there is room for, what are you looking for? Do you think that there is room for Star Wars to come back in that,
Yes.
using this specifically? Right. Okay.
Yes.
All right. And I don't mean right like I'm, that's the right
I
answer. I
am
mean,
hoping Disney looks at this train wreck, learns from their mistake, and moves on. I mean, I'm already liking what I'm seeing just from what they're doing with this, the series platform. I mean, The Mandalorian is, absolutely wonderful. I'm looking forward to seeing what they're going to come out with Andor and Kenobi and oh my god, all these other. The Bad Batch still not a fan of. I didn't like it very much. I stopped watching
Right.
that. But look, I get it. Look, I understand. We're nerds. We're very passionate. I get we have a certain level of expectation, but I am also somebody who my passion lies more with just the general movie industry. I love Star Wars. I do. I love it very much. But I am not just particularly focused on Star Wars. I love movies as a whole. I like the whole industry. I'm fascinated by it, everything from the production aspect to the acting to the costumes, directing, the filmmaking, everything. But I also understand it's a business. So I understand that you want to make your money, but there you have to toe this fine line of we're huge fans. We will wait, relax, calm the fuck down. Please sit down and really think about the story before you just slap something on that silver screen and take advantage of the fact that we're big Star Wars fans and they'll just pump money and just buy a ticket and they'll go watch whatever the hell we put on there. No, we're the last group of people you should be doing that with because we are the most critical. We are the most passionate. We are the most highly opinionated fans you will ever meet. Don't just slap whatever you want on there because eventually we will stop buying tickets if you're going to give us shit. And that's my opinion on it.
Okay.
So, well, yes, there should be a level of fan service, but at the same point, just, watch where you're going.
I think the sequel trilogy, in all honesty, would have been better served if they did it probably several years or so after Han, Luke, and Leia had passed away.
So right. I would have preferred that, honestly, instead of wrapping it up the way that they did.
Yeah.
It almost felt like a mockery.
Hold on just a second. Can you turn that off and then turn it back on again so it stays on? Thank you. But yeah, I think I do think that it would have been better served. I think if they were in fact, if it took place like 60 years after Return of the Jedi or something like that, and we're actually dealing with like 20 or 30-year-old Solo and Skywalker kids,
right?
That kind of thing, where it is, honest to God, been an extraordinary amount of time. 30 years is a long time, but in the same sense, it's not. I don't know. It just
I always felt that way. I always thought the timeline was very strange, jumping from Return of the Jedi to now The Force Awakens, and only 30 years have gone by, and somehow Luke is like a legend, and somehow the Jedi are already seen as some sort of fairy tale. And I'm like, 30 years doesn't seem like long enough for that to be the case. I thought it was a little strange.
Josh's point, they could have kept Luke, and they could have done it differently. With
I would have preferred that, honestly.
But if they did it, having done it the way they did it, and they did the whole thing where they're bringing the band back together, but the band was never back together.
We never even got to see the three of them in the same scene. So what the hell was the point?
No, the years that went in. No,
even the Han and Leia reunion felt odd and awkward and forced. Carrie Fisher is not the same at that point anymore. Up here, I mean, she didn't look the same. I didn't buy it. I didn't buy it.
It was too hard to suspend disbelief.
Yeah.
And that was the one thing that Star Wars had always done. There were aspects of the prequels that I was always watching them that took me out of them momentarily. Not so much with with the Revenge of the Sith, but primarily with Attack of the Clones, to tell you the truth.
Right.
I enjoyed the Phantom Menace.
I liked the Phantom Menace very much.
Right. It was
I still love it.
Further review that there are aspects of it that I don't need to rewatch because they do sort of grind
that's fine.
more
I
than
get
others.
it.
Right. And the meeting Jar Jar and those kinds of things. But when you get to Attack of the Clones, I'm heavy on skipping the romantic, them getting to know each other aspects. If you watch it that way, the machete version.
I can't. No, I can't. Attack of the Clones. I have such a hard time getting through that movie.
But if you
watch it, but
this is how I watch it now, and this is the only way I sort of enjoy it. You watch it all the way up until the point where Anakin and Padme take off to go back to Naboo.
Right.
When that happens,
Hmm.
every time they're on, because on the Blu-ray, every time their scene comes up, you just fast forward because they're one chapter,
Right.
and it goes to the next, and it's just bing, 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 and then all of a sudden there's Obi-Wan, and you get the Obi-Wan and what's his nuts, Grievous and all that stuff. You know what I'm saying? You get all the fun stuff. You get to the arena. You get everything you need because everything leading up to uh, them leaving for Naboo sets up the fact
Hmm.
that they're gonna they're gonna love each other. We know
Right.
this, but they've already set that up. And then if you're fast forwarding all that stuff, by the time they get to Geonosis,
Yeah.
you just watch the rest of the movie as it plays out, and you now understand that they love each other. They've gone through all that sand hurts or I hate or whatever the stupid shit he says, and the rolling around in the
So
daisies and all
flowery.
that stuff.
I
Oh my
swear
god,
to
it was
God.
so bad. But you
Oh
miss all
God.
of that, and you get the action parts, you get the chase sequence, you get all the stuff from the beginning. But as soon as they take off for Naboo, you cut all that bullshit out, and you get all the action beats of Obi-Wan doing his thing, looking for Grievous, right? Because they're split off. You get all that cool shit. And then when they finally get to Geonosis, like they're like, fuck all, let's go find him anyways. Like, because what does Amidala say? Like, oh, well, you're supposed to protect me and I'm going, so you have to go now.
Yep.
Duh. It was like
Oh my
it was
God.
so John Hughes. I don't even know what to do with myself. But by the time you get there, if that's all you see for the rest of the movie, all up until you understand Padme and Anakin. You understand why he's there. You understand why they're in peril. They're trying to save
Let me tell
Obi-Wan,
you.
even if they're just friends and not getting hot for each other. You know what I'm saying? They're there to save Obi-Wan. If that's just the story. And then they fall in love along the way instead of that bullshit with Naboo, I think we would have been better
Look,
served. But like I said, you get the arena, you get all that bullshit, but you don't get that happy horse shit in
look, deep down inside, I am actually very much a romantic, but I cannot take the dialogue between those two in that movie. It makes me want to
oh my
vomit,
god.
literally vomit.
Yeah.
And if a guy ever spoke to me that way, I'd probably slap him across the face and walk away.
You know what's indicative of though? It's
Ugh,
indicative of a boy who's never talked to a girl.
pretty
Who's
much.
going through all that. So
Pretty
that's how
much.
I as a as
It's
I've grown
too
older, I can
Shakespearean for me.
it wasn't good for me when I was in my 20s and I was hearing that shit. I was like, but now that I'm older and I see boys that are my oldest is 17, so she's hanging out with like
Yeah.
17 to like 21-year-olds type thing.
Hmm.
So when I see these boys and I'm like, that dude's fucking Anakin right there. Like I'm just like, how do you function? How did
No
how
game.
is my daughter interested in you, you big doofus? You know what I'm saying? Because it's just like whatever. I don't try to pretend, dude. I'm like, eh. But that's the thing is that they can't even talk right. It's just like, did you they're over there and I'm trying not to get involved or, privacy in the house. And so I'm doing my thing over here and I overhear he'll say something and I'm like, what the fuck were you dude, don't shut up. It's the equivalent of delete your account, dude. It's just
Oh
go
my
home, please. It's
God.
it's time for you to go.
You
You've
should
done
be more
embarrassed yourself.
concerned for your daughter who's falling for it.
She does. Well, there's an aspect of it
How
because
does this working for you?
the relationship our kids have with their friends. The generation is just weird. They're
Yeah.
just they shit talk each other, but it's like it's harsh. Like it. I know that they're now that I've been around it. Like I'd hear it on the periphery and be like, God damn, you talk to your friends like that. But yeah, but they all do it to each other, and so I'm like,
I
okay,
don't
I
know. Me and my
guess,
friends were pretty
like
vicious, but
whatever.
then again, I had mainly guy friends, so there was nothing that I haven't heard.
My mom, I can't tell you how many times that growing up playing games because you didn't play online or whatever until I
Yeah.
had a computer much later. But when I do like Super Nintendo or whatever, just screaming in the middle of the night at my game or what, just have I'd forget and I'd turn up the volume or I'd come home because I worked at Blockbuster and stuff when I was older and I was still living at home.
Blockbuster.
So I'd come home and I had a TV that I had bought and it had
Yeah.
speakers. And I'd come home at 1 o'clock in the morning after closing and turn on a movie or Star Trek Next Generation or
Yeah.
something. Animaniacs or whatever I taped.
Animaniacs.
Right. Because that's what I had. I had a VCR that I would
Oh my
schedule.
God.
It would tape all this shit throughout the week. And so I have this tape that I would go back and going to
Yeah.
school and working. When I got home, man, I'd watch 2, 3, 4 hours of that shit. You
It's
know,
amazing.
fast forward through the commercials and all that stuff.
Oh, I miss
Do
Blockbuster.
you, I know, what do you hold on to as you move forward? What do you hold on to as you develop this Chantal out there in the world sort of persona? What sort of shows, what sort of movies, what sort of things do you find yourself wanting to express a joy for?
The two sides of the same coin, drama and comedy. Drama and comedy. Those are the two.
So do you find yourself like with what shows, okay, it's drama, but do you find yourself, is there a genre, for instance, are you into all the CSIs and
I don't
those
like
kinds of
that kind of
shows?
like the crime. Like, no, I've never really been into that. Like espionage and like what was the one with Mandy
NCIS?
Patinkin? Yeah, I'm not into the NCIS stuff. Or
What was
I
Mandy Patinkin? What show was that?
what the heck was that show with Claire Danes? Oh, what
Criminal
the hell?
Minds?
No, 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 no,
Oh, no,
no,
no, no. Oh,
no, 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 no. It's on
the HBO one.
the yeah, or whatever the
Um,
like. That's not my like the Jason Bourne kind of stuff. I mean,
right.
I'll watch it to a certain extent, but that's not really what I'm watching. Most of the time, comedy is really, in terms of TV, comedy is really mainly what I tend to watch more than anything.
To
With a
gravitate
little,
towards.
yeah, with a little bit of drama sprinkled in there. Because drama for me, because of how I am, and I'm already like such an emotional person, and it takes a lot out of me.
Mm-hmm.
If I'm going to watch drama, I have to be really in a certain mindset. And so I'm the kind of person, like during the week, I work 9 to 6. So the last thing I want to watch after 8 hours working is a drama, which is
Mm-hmm.
something that I'm probably going to have to pay more attention to as opposed to something more light. So typically I'll save drama for like the weekend. But during the week, I've been on a kind of a kick lately where I've been watching the same shit over and over is the problem. So I'm not even really watching anything new right now except for like the Marvel What If. I'm watching that. So I'm really into that. That's been really great. I watched all the Marvel shows that came out. So obviously, Marvel's really got me right now. They have my heart right now. Sorry, Star Wars. But I've been rewatching Parks and Rec a lot. I've watched the show Barry more times than I even care to admit because I think that show is absolutely phenomenal. I'm a huge Bill Hader fan, and I love dark comedy, and that is most certainly a dark comedy.
Yeah.
So I like that kind of stuff. There's another show on Sci-Fi called Resident Alien. That one's really good. I don't know if I just mentioned that.
No.
That's a really good show. That premiered, I think, at the beginning of this year for the New Year's. My mom and I, our family, every year for New Year's, we watch the Twilight Zone marathon on Sci-Fi Channel, and they started running. I know Barry's such a great show. I can't wait for season 3 to come back. They started advertising for the show. It's with Alan Tudyk, where he's an alien that's crash landed on Earth, and he's supposed to actually, I think, like destroy Earth, but he can't do it. He lost, the apparatus that's supposed to like essentially blow up Earth. And he's taken on a human form, but he ends up being hired as the town doctor. And of course, he's an alien, so he's a complete fucking weirdo, and nobody knows he's an alien. But it's really, really funny. And Alan Tudyk is just an absolute genius. He's so funny. Another show that I really like is The Marvelous Mrs. Maisel on Prime Video. That's a movie. That's a TV show that's set in the 1960s, and it's about a housewife where her husband leaves her in the middle of the night, and she becomes a stand-up comic. So that's a really great show. And I actually got to be an extra on that show, so that was a lot of fun. So
When
at
was
least I
that?
got a little taste of that. I got very lucky because IMDb is essentially my newspaper, and I'm on it all the time. I caught wind on there from their news section that Mrs. Maisel was going to be filming a couple of episodes in Miami. And I said, you got to be fucking kidding me. So I was just like every week on Google, just trying to find updates, when the casting was going to open up, where they were going to do it. And then, you know, I have a full-time job. I wasn't sure if I was going to be able to do it. It was literally a couple of weeks before they were going to start filming. And I wasn't sure if I was going to be able to do it because I didn't really technically have the vacation time at the time. But I ended up speaking to my boss, and she said, I'll let you go into the negative. Go ahead and request the 3 days off. You can go ahead and tell them you can do it. I ended up writing them an email and telling them, listen, this show means a lot to me. I love this show. I don't know if you're still looking for people, but I would really love to be an extra. And I said, this is something that I've always wanted to do. They emailed me right back. They said, can you come to the Greenwich studios, which was actually right by where I was living at the time. Can you come in for a fitting? And do you mind cutting your hair? I said, nope, not at all. They chopped my hair right off, which didn't matter because I ended up wearing a wig anyway. And that was it. And I got to spend 3 days on set in Miami.
Why would they cut your hair before?
They were, because since it was set in the 1960s, they had me cut my hair, and they wanted us to put our hair in rollers and do kind of like the 1960s look.
Oh, right.
But because of my hair, and unfortunately it's a little too thin, it really didn't take when I tried doing it. So when I got there, they took one look at me and they said, I think you'll be better off like wearing a wig. So they put a wig on me. So I got to wear a wig, and they put my makeup, and I got to wear 2 different dresses, and we were all dressed up in 1960s garb, and there were all these classic cars around me. It was so wonderful. And of course, as a car person, I was like, look at all these, there's a Bel Air. I was like, oh my God, I was freaking out. I was like, look at all these classic cars. It was such a big deal. And then some of the main actors were there, so that was an even bigger deal. And then the anxiety of waiting 9 months for the the season to premiere, and finally watching it and seeing myself on screen in the background. And I was like, holy shit. I was like, this is the best 3 days of my life. And I would totally do this again. I loved it. And that's really what like sparked it. After doing that, I was like, I was like, you know what? I was like, I need to do this. I was like, I really need to do this.
Really get into it. Did you pursue so you pursued Ro, so you wanted to be on what show? Do you remember which one it was on? Which episode? Was it 4?
It was my suggestion. It was my suggestion to talk about comedy in Star Wars. So they basically did the episode around my suggestion and asked me to come on. And then at that point, at the end of the episode, they asked actually if I actually wanted to come on as a co-host. And I said, well, considering that I had wanted to do my own podcast, I said, I think this would be a better fit anyway, because you guys are going to talk about the same things that I'm most likely going to talk about. And I prefer to bounce off of somebody anyway. So it kind of killed 2 birds with 1 stone.
Yeah.
And then, of course, Brad, wherever he, we miss you, Brad. But
yes,
of course, he got called to service, and now it's just been, Ro and I holding the fort down, so to speak.
Do you, where do you find yourself with content and stuff? How much do you like the contributions, or?
Oh, I love the topics that we do.
Do you find yourself wanting to more and more contribute in that fashion, or do you? Okay, let me start over. I'm thinking in my mind of something, but I'm not actually formulating a question. With them having something that was already established and having a fan base and those kinds of things,
right?
When you were brought on board, did you have ideas that you waited on, or were there things that you sort of right away?
Well, first of all, when I was thinking of doing a podcast, it was going to be something completely different. I mean, there would have been obviously some level of me bringing, a lot of me to it, but it really wasn't going to be so nerd centric or anything like that. But, you know, I obviously have no problem talking about this stuff. So it was a really good fit to take this on. So once I agreed to it, they asked me, can you start thinking of things that maybe you would like to discuss on the podcast? And of course, within 20 minutes, because I'm such a writer, within 20 minutes of sitting down, I had I think make 2 pages worth of stuff that I had already sent them. I'm like, oh, well, here are a bunch of things that I like. Of course, some of the things they had already kind of touched upon.
Right.
But they weren't even things that I was even thinking of talking about on my own podcast. Had I got my own, it was just stuff that I thought of on the fly at that moment when they asked me. Yeah, no, my podcast was going to be something completely different.
Oh, yes. Yes. That's, where would you see yourself if you did your podcast? If you did something like that, I mean, could you see yourself doing a podcast, and what would you do?
Well, first of all, my podcast was going to be a lot racier. So like I said, it was going to be completely different. It was going to be totally about sex and the obsession in this country of kind of, the prudishness behind sex and kind of breaking certain stigmas, and are people still very closed-minded about sex, like that kind of thing. And kind of, which is something that I want to do with my friend, because since, especially him being a guy, we really wanted to talk about also the differences in how the different genders view sex, the difference in how men view sex and how women view sex, and trying to understand each other a little bit better, because I am definitely of the belief that men and women just don't understand each other when it comes to that. Yeah, when it comes to that department. So yeah, when I say my podcast was going to be very different, it was going to be very different.
No, I imagine, yeah.
Because I am not shy about that subject in the least bit. I really don't care. Out of all the things that I am so shy about, that's the one thing that I'm not. I could talk about all day. I don't give a shit. It's the most natural thing in the world. It doesn't embarrass me. And again, like I said, kind of from high school and on, I had a lot of guy friends. So again, there's nothing that I haven't heard. I got to get the male perspective on stuff. I've gotten the female perspective on things. So I thought it would have been a really interesting topic. But of course, like with anything, there's a million podcasts now. It sucks. So to kind of how you're going to make yourself unique enough to stand out. You know how many sex podcasts there are? Look how many Star Wars podcasts there are. So imagine, how do you make yourself stand out is the issue.
But coming back, so talking about this podcast, that does anyone know about? Does Ro know about this?
No.
Your co-host?
No, I think Ro would burst into flames.
Breaking! I have an exclusive here.
Ro can't handle half the shit that comes out of my mouth. Okay, so can you imagine a sex podcast? I literally think his head would explode, Scanner style.
Copious amounts of alcohol, like just a bunch of ladies just sitting around a table, just drinking wine and boozing it up. Just,
I mean, you experienced it when you came on Rachel's show with us at one time. You hadn't even really met us. You saw how cuckoo that got. So,
well, that's what I'm saying. As far as, right. So if you had to explain it to somebody, that's what you're talking about, is just totally deep diving that hole. Right.
Mm-hmm.
So how do you still have a desire to do that? Or is that just something that, as a hobby?
Not really. Not unless I would be able to find somebody to do that with me. I am very self-conscious about the thought of doing that alone. That is something that I think would work best in a conversation type aspect.
Yeah, I think, I think it's difficult in general to have that kind of relationship by yourself with the microphone, with your audience. I think that is a true talent, to be able to do those things. And that, it's not that it's easier. I think that having other people there with you you're kind of sharing the blame. You're kind of sharing the joy and the you're there together type thing. And so if it, technical aspects aside, you're just not all the weight is on you.
Right.
So
exactly.
That's
which I can't stand.
Sounds like it. So it's
Look,
just
I
not.
don't even like people singing happy birthday to me on my birthday because I don't like, all these pairs of
I know.
eyes looking at me. So imagine
No.
now I'm the only person talking into, and I've tried, to get myself more comfortable before I even met Ro or Brad. I had I had the podcast microphone already, and I already had Audacity, and I would try just talking into the microphone, kind of treating it like a diary, so to
Hmm.
speak, and, you know, hi, my name is whatever, this is who I am, kind of thing, and just getting used
Hmm.
to it. And of course, not, God forbid, wouldn't even dare to go back and listen to it. And that was the other problem. I was like, how am I even going to be able to edit something that I've created if I can't even listen to
Right.
myself talk? So
Hmm.
that is a very strange experience, listening to yourself like that for the first time. It's gotten a little bit better. I do For a while, I really held off on listening to any of the episodes that I have recorded with Ro, but then I had my buddy Frank come on, who lives here in Miami as well, that I've known for a long time, and he came on as a guest with me. And, as my friend and as a courtesy, I felt that he came on. I owed it to him to listen to the episode. And of course, that entailed me having to listen to myself. But I got through it. I just pretend I'm listening to somebody
Survive.
else. I pretend
Right.
I'm not listening to me. I'm like, oh, okay, this is someone else who's hosting the show that day. And I've been doing that ever since because
So you
I
don't
want to
critique.
listen
You
to it.
don't.
I
Oh,
do,
okay.
absolutely.
Oh,
I
okay.
keep telling Ro we need to have a Scarif afterthoughts because sometimes I'll go back and listen to our episodes and there are things that I'm commenting on that either he said or I've said or the guests have said that I didn't think about at the time. And I feel like doing like a segment like that where, I can just go for 10 or 15 minutes and, review review an episode,
Well, it
something
sounds
like
like,
that.
yeah. I don't know. I think that would be fun for you to get to a point where you were comfortable enough to
Yeah.
branch out and do that
Mhm.
completely separate. Because that sort of, it sounds like.
I'm in my own way. Don't worry. I know that.
No, I know you're hitting all your marks to get to your eventual goal, which is fantastic.
It
You
just
know what I
takes
mean?
me
Like you're.
time. It takes me time to
Oh,
get
of course.
comfortable. Yeah, it takes me time to get comfortable. I mean,
Well, and that's
it,
something I
it
would
was
tell
nerve
anybody.
wracking. Yeah, and it was
Oh
nerve
yeah.
wracking doing the recordings, at first with Ro and Brad because I haven't met you in person. I'm meeting you through the internet. I don't know
Right. Right.
anything about you guys. You guys could be total fucking assholes. You guys could be total wackos. I don't know. But you know what? I've gotten to know all of you. I went to ScarifCon, which was a really big deal, and I'm
And we
glad that
all
I
are
went.
wackos.
Yeah,
We're all
and
crazy.
that's fine. That's fine. You're my particular brand of wacko, so
Oh,
it works
weirdo.
out great. It works
Weird.
out great.
There you go.
No,
Yeah.
everyone's
No,
been so
that's.
nice. No, everyone's been so nice. I don't feel like anyone's tried to take advantage. I don't feel like I've been misrepresented in any way. Ro has been nothing but nice to me as much as I make fun of him and insult him, but I hope he knows it's all in jest and it's
Well,
a
no,
very
I think.
brotherly, sisterly kind of thing. He knows. I know
Right.
he knows.
Well,
I know he knows.
in person and stuff, he's not very deadpan. It's just that you can see it in his eyes, like when he's joking or something.
Yeah, you could tell. You could
He's not
tell.
voice like outright laughy, jovial smile.
Right,
Like
right.
he is.
It's subtle.
He's
It's subtle.
extremely exactly.
It's
But you
subtle.
could tell like it's hysterical. But what was fun about
He knows
and
he
we'll
loves me.
and I think that's the thing is that what's so hysterical about some of these direct messages, these private chat rooms and stuff, and this is why I adore it, is that the because people kind of let their hair down. It's
Hmm.
not what I cherish most about social media, but there are those aspects of you do realize that people are in costume, because they are. This is what they've chosen to do, and they've put themselves in a costume. They know that. They just
Yeah.
because they don't they do their thing.
Mhm.
and they that's all they do, and there's
Right.
absolutely nothing wrong with that. In fact, I prefer a lot of that. Sometimes I gravitate towards more now than I did ever. Very
Right.
much a lot of the people in our network very very into what they're into, and they don't let anything. But more specifically to my point is what I
Mhm.
wanted to get to is, do you feel that being in a network that and on a show that
Mhm.
is a soft PG-13 or even a hard PG, do you find yourself a square
Stifled.
peg? Yeah, do you find yourself on the outside again a little bit sometimes?
Ro should know by now that um I have quite the potty mouth, and I love him. But yeah, sometimes it I'm not. I don't want to say I censor myself because I'm very used. I'm very respectful around my parents, so I'm very used to switching on and off the swearing. Not
Right.
so much anymore, but that's just the way that I've always been. So I know how Ro feels about the cursing and stuff like that. So I definitely keep it under wraps. Um, but if he's willing to bleep everything, I'd be definitely. I think if I could be a little bit more like that, that would probably make me feel a little bit more comfortable. But at the same point, I understand that there is a target audience that he is shooting for.
Oh,
And I
of
have
course.
great respect for that. And I don't want it to be this thing of where every other word he has to bleep out of my mouth. You know what I mean? I
Right.
know how to scale back, and I know where it's appropriate and I know where it's not. Like
Well,
here,
that's
I can tell it's appropriate and it doesn't
right.
matter.
No,
And
and
that's fine. And that's
that's like
fine.
what we were talking about in the chat as far as collaborating and stuff like that. It's like, no, I
Hmm.
honest to God, I don't have to fucking cuss this fucking much. I fucking swear. You know what I mean? Like, trust me,
I'm just
I can.
used to it.
No, I know. It's just how, and to be gratuitous, that's basically what that.
Yeah.
But when you hear how me and my friends talk and those kinds of
Yeah.
things, it is a dialect. It's not
Hmm.
so much the vulgarity of it. It just, because in the military we are so transient in and of
Hmm.
ourselves as an
Right.
individual, but as units you have people both coming in and leaving all the time, and so
Hmm.
there's this huge influx of not only personalities and backgrounds and those kinds of things, but of accents as well.
Right.
And so what ends up happening is that whoever you're surrounded by, you kind of adopt this
Hmm.
family accent, which is
Right. Right.
basically
Right.
your squad, your platoon,
Yeah.
your
I get
that
it.
kind of thing.
Hmm.
And that's what I feel with the Red 5 network, is that there's this underlying sort of language
Yeah.
that we all speak,
Hmm.
but at the same time everyone can go, let me describe it this way. I
Oh boy.
was friendly with everybody in my platoon. I was
Hmm.
friendly with everybody in, so that's
Yeah.
30
That's how
people,
you are.
40
Yeah.
40 people, right? So
Hmm.
I'm very friendly with everybody. I could chit chat with all of them.
Yeah.
But when I threw a party in the barracks, as soon as formation was over, that's the last thing of the day. Everybody's in a group. Be like, hey, party in my room tonight, whatever have you, and that kind of thing. Hey, cool, cool, cool. And there was always some people who were like, we were extremely pleasant to work around each other. We liked each other in that environment. It was just that when we let our hair down, we just did so in different ways. They, like
Right.
Ro and I were talking about the drinking and stuff in high school. The people I gravitated towards, we kind of reverted back to that before we could drink kind of adolescence, where for me
Hmm.
anyways, me and my friends, we were out there on the golf course because we smuggled some alcohol or something like that,
Right. Right.
acting a
Right.
fool out on the golf course at 2 o'clock in the morning on a weeknight or some
Right.
bullshit in summertime. That kind of acting a fool. But there were people that I respected and they respected me,
Hmm.
but I didn't give them crap, and they respected me
Right.
for that, for not having that sort of college-esque, and that's kind of what it is. It's just a dorm
Yeah.
room in college. How do you reconcile that now, growing up, growing out of
Hmm.
presumably that girl from that Catholic school background, and now you're in a setting
Uh
on a
huh.
show
Uh huh.
where you've grown up, you've come out, you've been married, and excuse me, you're living on your own now,
Yep.
and you got the job and the dog, and you're a full blown. You've got the bills. You're now
Mm-hmm.
adulting, or at
Yes.
least facsimile thereof,
Yes, or
much
at
like
least
myself or
making
anybody
it
else.
look
Is
like I
just
am.
right, faking the funk. What
Fake it till you make
what
it.
exactly? What, do you do you have a hard time sometimes feeling comfortable knowing how accepting everyone is of let's just us too, and how we are in
I
private
will
chat,
always,
and how everyone just
I
they
will
just
always wonder why anybody wants to talk to me. I will always feel that way. Always. I will never understand why anyone wants to talk to me. I will never understand why anybody wants me around. I will never understand why anyone thinks I'm even remotely funny. I will never understand why anyone thinks I'm attractive. I don't believe anybody. I don't believe in compliments, but I will believe every negative thing you throw at me. That's just the way I'm built. I can't help it. And I think most
just
people are like that,
a,
honestly.
s- a sponge for the. So it's good. It's to bring everything full circle. It's sort of a there are several people that I've talked to privately who
Hmm.
have in their 30s, in their 40s, and one guy in his 50s that sort of we all had to go through all of that in order to get to this place where we're starting to figure
Yeah.
this shit out
Right.
and be comfortable in our own skin and
Hmm.
accepting of other people and other ideas and stuff, and we don't have to be married to anybody.
Right.
You know, it's there's no forever, you know, till death do you part sort of thing. You can have this weaving in and out of ideas and then
Hmm.
still be civil to each other, and I think
Exactly.
that is important. And of the two personalities that stand out, Alex and of course the salty nerd podcast crew aside,
Hmm.
um I can't think of a saltier pair than the two of us as far as in the chat, because when we get now, don't get me wrong, we pull some people into our down to our level, I should
Me?
say. Yes, of course you do. But do you
I'm the
I
worst.
sometimes feel bad because I'm starting. It's not that I didn't before. I'm watching everybody's stuff more often now, and those that have, like, I see with the podcast, it's a little bit difficult where they're just audio. But I,
Yeah.
you know, having seen them, pictures of them or video of them or whatever, but those that have video and they're like you said, they're providing entertainment or
Yeah.
information for a specific target audience, and they're
Hmm.
not there for, you know,
Yeah.
that Bill Burr sort of
Does
interaction.
my writing surprise you? Does the stuff that I say in our group chat surprise you?
No, not at all. There
Oh,
are
okay.
times. No,
There are
oh
times where
shit,
I
no,
write stuff and even I'm like, oh my God. I was like, I can't believe I just said,
no,
I can't believe I
no,
just said that. I'll literally say, I'm
no.
sorry. And then, shit.
Right. No, if anything, I'll just laugh. That's usually my go-to reaction with
I
stuff like
just
that. Is that was so, I can't believe you just said that shit right now, and I'm
can't
laughing
help
because
myself.
that. Well, yeah, it's the dark stuff that we laugh at, and
I
that's
just
sort of
can't
what
help myself.
right, and that's one of those things that I sort
Yeah.
of wanted to kind of pull out is how did you feel when those people were just like, yeah, we know you're fucked up, and although they don't use that language,
Oh, but I am definitely willing to
you know
say
what I
I'm
mean?
fucked up.
Oh well, yeah, but I mean that's part of it is just, you know, come as you are sort of mentality and
Hmm.
the way that, but more specifically the Brad and Roe, the kind of the trust behind it, you know, the way that they were, are, and continue to be, um, with everyone,
Yeah.
and then themselves completely separately. You know what I mean? And to know Brad
Hmm.
quite separate from Roe,
Right.
quite separate from Chantal,
Hmm.
to then have all you guys on the same podcast
Right.
and have it work is it's genius.
Oh,
It's
good. It
absolute
works. I'm
genius.
glad it works. I'm glad it
No, it
works.
does.
Good. I'm glad.
It's fantastic. It is one of those things that um in a sea, like we were talking about before,
Hmm.
uh in a sea of people who are giving as much effort as they can,
Hmm.
and they don't have a whole lot of expectation on the other end of it,
Right.
to see somebody who has passion, drive, imagination, creativity, those kinds of things, not only be a driving force for the messages he wants to get out,
Right.
but such a powerful such a powerful force for positivity that he's actually pulling other planetary bodies into his orbit.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like it just naturally occurs. And then, of course, through the natural progression, it just made sense to sort of fall under, especially for the original crew, fall under one group
Right.
and
Right.
sort of, of inner promotion and those kinds of things, and quiet support and public support and those kinds of things that go into fears and aspirations and dreams and questions, and having
Yeah.
that sounding board rather than just being out there
Right.
flapping. As we sort of wind down and wrap up here, what has been your most positive experience from meeting the guys and joining their podcasts? What would you say has been your most positive experience? Uh-oh.
Finally being given a voice. As much as I don't, it's a very weird thing. I'm such a walking contradiction. As much as I don't like attention, at the same point, I've also have never felt like I've never been heard. So to now have been given this opportunity to, be on this platform of podcasting and having my opinion heard on these things and getting feedback from people and getting positive feedback from people, and even in the numbers, and Ro is always telling me how the numbers are doing after they release and things like that. So obviously we're doing something right. And even from the stupidity that I post on Twitter, and even getting the feedback from there, and seeing that people are liking what I'm writing and finding me funny, and that's really been the biggest thing, is just finally feeling like I have a voice and that people are actually listening, and they're not judging me, and they actually like what I have to say, and just finding my people. I mean, that's always been my biggest issue, is I've never felt like I have found my people. And now I do. And that's why I am constantly posting on Twitter that I'm so grateful for this nerd family, because it's true. You guys are my family.
That's very cool. That's
definitely.
It's one of those stories that
it is the most comfortable I have ever felt in my skin. And full disclosure, because I really don't give a shit about talking about this kind of stuff, but I do. I go to therapy. I'm not ashamed of it. I suffer. It's fine. It's cool. I've learned that it doesn't have me. I have it, and I have to look for the silver lining. And how am I going to channel my anxiety? How am I going to channel this energy into something else instead of feeling so utterly depressed about it? And that is one of the things that has been the biggest thing, is that she is very proud of me, that I have definitely have seemed to find my people, because she has been pushing me for a long time. She's like, get out there, do the podcasting thing, make your voice heard. Can you please write? Can you please write a book? Can you please do that already? Go out there, do acting classes. She's just get out there. She said, you obviously have a passion for it. People are obviously responding to you, basically saying, I don't know what the hell your problem is, but there's just always going to be this shred of doubt in me, and I just still kind of can't believe it, kind of thing. I don't know. I guess I'd rather be modest than be arrogant, is how I see it.
Well, yeah.
I feel like it keeps me grounded to a certain extent, so I'd rather not.
There's more reality.
Let this get to my head, kind of thing. Like, I'm doing this for fun. I'm not doing this for fame.
Because then you start doing it, like you said, you start doing it for all the wrong
reasons, and I don't want to get into that. I mean, as much as I love acting, I am not for the fame. The fame part of it is actually what scares me the most. I just really like the craft of acting. I like, being able to make somebody feel something by these words that I'm saying on this page. And I am giving you a character that you can possibly relate to, while bringing some of my own truth to that character. I mean, but yeah, I don't know. The celebrity part of it is actually what doesn't interest me in the
Would it?
least bit.
Well, let me.
I would
You do
want
a
to be
little.
I would want to be like the actors of the 30s and 40s and 50s that you didn't see them until it was like Oscar time, and they really
Right.
didn't do interviews. Like Hollywood was literally treated like royalty, where it really was like seeing the queen. And now it's more disillusioned. You see actors everywhere, especially because of social media. You know, you're given so much more insight into their lives that it has gotten to the point where I wonder if I would even have a reaction if I saw a celebrity now.
Yeah.
Certain ones I might still go crazy over, but
It's certainly gotten that way. But would it surprise you, seeing as you had a little breaking
mhm.
news here on the show? Would it surprise you to know that I had some of this equipment for 3 years before I even started?
Really?
Hmm.
No, it
This
doesn't
microphone,
surprise me. No, it
this
doesn't
microphone
surprise
off
me
of
considering I
eBay.
had my microphone for a year before,
Hmm.
and I still almost didn't do anything with it. It
And
only
then,
took, yeah, so imagine. No, I totally
but
get it. I get it.
to your point, it was hooking up with the VA and getting hooked in
Mhm.
with combat vet mental health awareness and things
Yeah.
like that. That a lot of what I was being pushed towards was
Mhm.
to get into the outlet of
Right.
doing this as well as gaming
I mean, it is a
and
form of
using that
therapy.
outlet. It
It's a
is,
form of
and
therapy.
it is, and it's one of those things that once you view it that way, I this will always be goofy shit to me. Yes,
Yeah.
we're conversing, we're having fun and stuff, but
Hmm.
the material with which we're all bonding around and that we're commenting on it's entertainment.
It is. It's
It's candy,
fiction.
right?
Right.
Exactly.
Absolutely.
So, but it's not. It is candy in the sense, if you want to look at it that way, but it's more sustenance than that. I think that
Yeah.
in these, as we've gotten older, I think that these certain generations have needed movies, have needed entertainment more based
Hmm.
off of what was going on in the world, and I think that we find ourselves in that place again, to where
Yeah.
the world has we're looking to entertainment to be more of an escape because the world is getting much more real quickly.
I've said repeatedly, we are going through another golden age of television. I mean, television has never been so fucking good. I mean, to the point of to the point of where it's almost become daunting. I don't, which is why I've unfortunately have fallen to this rut of watching the same shows that I've seen 1,000 times, another 1,000 times, because there is now so much content that it feels like a homework assignment now. You know what I mean?
Right. And that
Oh,
so
like it took me
so
forever just to get to Breaking Bad. You
and
know what
that's
I mean?
yeah,
I was
and that's the
so
thing.
late on Breaking Bad.
That's the thing that pretty much this entire show, bringing it full circle, is the need, the want, and the desire on our own to sort of participate within the network
Hmm.
and to get to know people and to reach out and do things like this and have meetups and
Yeah.
collaborations and those kinds of things. And
Oh,
so
this is a
that,
great idea.
because so that we could be with each other when
Yeah.
we can't be with each other because it's
Yeah.
separated by times and distances and
Of
things like
course.
that. But it's also part of it's become part of our culture. I do
Hmm.
school like this now. There's
Right.
50
Right.
faces on the screen. Well, it's all,
Hey,
their cameras aren't on or
I do a
whatever,
video
but
conference with my coworkers every Friday. I mean, that's
right,
just become
exactly.
the
And
norm now.
even pre-COVID, we were doing, um, conference calls and those kinds of
Right.
things with the East Coast and,
Of
being
course.
working with the government and those kinds of
Makes
things.
sense. Yeah.
But it's become easy to do and
Hmm.
to hit a couple buttons, and here we are, and there's a bunch of people, 5 or 6 people in chat, and here we are chit-chatting across space and time about stuff that we love.
Yeah.
It's something you can throw up on the screen, or as a podcast you can,
And it is amazing the closeness that I have felt with you guys even before going to Scarif Con. I mean, it really is amazing. You wouldn't think you could develop that kind of closeness or a bond, you know,
hmm
via Twitter or Zoom or whatever the case may
hmm
be. But, and then, of course, and then seeing you guys at Scarif Con just kind of solidified everything. I mean, I, I mean, I pretty sure I said something to you guys and did post something special to you guys on YouTube. I don't know if everyone watched it, but the moment I landed and walked right through my apartment, I was literally in tears. Literally in tears. I must have cried for about half an hour when I got home. Because, and as much as, yes, it was nice to be back in my own space, it was more of just, I miss you guys. And you guys were all so wonderful. And I had so much fun, even though I was only there for a night. And why can't we all be near each other? And I don't have this level of friendship down here, aside from, oddly enough, which we can always do a part 2 of this if you really want to delve into that. But I have a very, very good, still amicable friendship with my ex-husband. So really, to tell you the truth, I still kind of consider my ex-husband to be my best friend because he knows me inside and out, obviously, since, we were married, duh. But, and then of course, having rekindled my friendship with Frank, because we hadn't spoken in a few years, but for the most part, I can't really say that I am really tied to anybody here in Miami. I don't feel a closeness with anybody really down here. I don't have any friends still from high school. Everyone was still just living in high school. So, I had to kind of let that go. Some people just don't know how to some people don't know how to run away from the past and want to live in the past. And
so you're announcing here tonight, if some Prince Charming came along and swooped you off your feet, you'd be in North Dakota tomorrow?
It's so weird that you would say that because I actually had this discussion today
with a guy from North Dakota.
No. No. Full disclosure, I had therapy today. Not a big deal. I love her. She's wonderful. But I above everything else, just because of the life that I've had, yes, above everything else, love has always been the biggest thing. The biggest void, I guess I would say. So it is funny that I had that conversation with her today, that as much as acting is my passion and I would love to do it, honestly, if the guy really knocked it out of the park and I met someone, honestly, I probably would give it up for that because I would rather have that. If I could make both happen, obviously that would be the ideal situation. But honestly, if you gave me a choice between having love and acting, I would probably choose having love more than anything. And again, that's just the romantic in me. It's just how I am.
From what little bit that I'm hearing from the industry, the way that they're doing things it's very different now. To live in town is not quite the necessity it used to be, and for obvious reasons. They would prefer that no one all co-locate in one,
Right.
You know what I mean? That kind of thing is that just come from your area and do your thing for your bit and then go back. That is the mentality, and especially not with traditional Hollywood. So I would say network TV,
right?
Even to an extent, cable shows on cable TV, and movies. My point is more towards those who are trying to break into that, like your Netflix and your Hulus, and those they're doing much more unorthodox sort of productions, than your traditional Hollywood, and for good reason. So I don't know. There might be one day where not only will you be on that one episode or a couple episodes of the marvelous
Mrs. Maisel.
There you go. I was gonna say Mrs. Maisel. Maisel was the word I was missing there. It's you, Miss Chantal, out there on Netflix or Hulu or those kinds of things. Would that be something that you would enjoy, regardless of where you ended up or whatever your situation was outside of that? That is ultimately where you would like to see yourself is part of something like that, like a show or a movie.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
Definitely.
Yeah.
That's outstanding. Well, I want to thank you for coming on tonight.
Absolutely. No, thank you for inviting me. I really enjoyed this. And as much as people might think this is more nerve-wracking, believe it or not, I prefer one-on-ones like this. When the group starts to expand, I start to fade into the background because I don't have that type A personality. So I become the
Right.
observer. But
Mhm.
if it's one-on-one like this, then you can get me to talk. Other than that, no. So thank you so much. No, this was really great. And I like this. This is a great idea. I think it's a great way to give everyone a chance to talk about themselves for a little bit, and you get to know everybody.
No, it
Thanks,
it is
Josh.
it is fantastic, and
Thanks, Frank.
these
My
guys
buddy.
they've been great. They've been great
Yes,
just
thank
hanging out
you.
and chatting stuff. But yeah,
You
no,
guys are good
it's
friends.
I think it's important, especially with for me from my
Mhm.
perspective, just giving back to Red 5 and having things like this and in their mediums and giving them their times, and it's not hundreds of thousands of views and there's no super chats or things like that,
Yeah.
and we can sit down and have discussions like this when we're all still not famous, so that years from
I'll
now,
never forget any of you, I promise.
years
Even
from
my,
now when
oh, you should hear my mom. Because look, I love my mom very much. I have a very close relationship. So I, every day after work, I call her. She gets time off on the weekends, but every day, Monday through Thursday, I call her, and Fridays are reserved for my sister because she lives in North Carolina. But there are times where I have to call her in the afternoon during lunch, and I'm like, I'm so sorry, Mom. I got to record with Ro like right after I hop off, or I got to go do Alan's show because I've been going on his show almost every Thursday now. And she's
Mhm.
like, well, look at you. Look at you, this podcast. She was like, don't forget us little people when you become famous, your mother and father who brought you onto this earth.
no,
My
it's
parents
yeah,
are
I know.
very, very happy, by the way. They
I
love the
get
way all of you have been treating me. They love that I'm doing this because they're like, finally, finally, you found your crew.
it's
You
yeah, it's
finally get to talk about this shit.
and you don't have to feel like you have to talk to them the whole time, you know what I mean? Like they're like, good, talk about that shit with other people.
My
Quit
mom
talking
likes
to
Star Wars, but my dad is not a Star Wars person in the least bit. He thinks it's for kids. You know, my mom is more of the nerd. She loves all that stuff, and but she's still not as into it as like I am, but she admires my passion. So she's happy I found this. She loves
yeah,
Ro
no,
and Brad very much.
it's yeah, no,
She
they're
loves them very
fantastic
much for
guys.
giving me this platform.
Yeah, you couldn't have found a better crew
And she
to
loves
marry
all
up
of
with,
you for
certainly.
protecting me during Chicago so she didn't have to explain to my dad how I got murdered.
Right.
Chicago.
Just the creepy guy from Chicago going, "Do you got a ride from the airport? Can I give you a ride? You want a ride?"
Oh
I was
my
not
god.
trying to be. I was like, "Look, I'm gonna have this vehicle. You can have." I don't know. It was just, it was odd because we had met, and
I
I'm like
know.
trying to be nice,
I'm
like
trying to reassure my mom. Look, he's a dad. He has daughters. He
that if I had the safest
understands. He just
hotels and
wants
the
to make
closest
sure
to,
I'm okay. Calm down. It's just,
I was like, "No,
listen,
I got
you're
this."
a parent, and you're a parent,
Right.
and you're a parent of daughters. You understand the fear.
Well, and then that whole aspect that you let us in on as far as your anxiety and then how your mom was feeling about the trip and all of that stuff. It's sort of,
All I kept thinking is,
it's not
please
that we
don't
felt
die.
responsible. It
I was like,
was
please don't die. Please let this plane not crash. Because if my mom's got to explain to my dad that I went somewhere that he didn't know where I was and I died on a plane, like, this is where my mind goes. I'm the most anxious flyer ever. Oh my God.
it's hysterical.
We didn't even talk about all the food that I'm picky about.
No, not at all. So
We're going to
you
have to do a
definitely have
part
to come
two.
back. Definitely. Well, no, it's basically what I'd like to thank everybody for being a part of is this continuing sort
Sure.
of evolution of what I'm doing, and to our point earlier was that a lot of this is as funny as it sounds, a diary for my kids, something to leave
Yeah,
behind, in that sense,
sure.
because they never saw me, they don't see me interact with friends, they don't see me
Right,
interact
right. So this is something to
in that
share with
environment,
them. I think they'll
right?
really enjoy this and appreciate it when they get older.
When they get older and they
Yeah, and say, look
understand,
what dad
like,
did.
right, that's why he's an
I
idiot,
agree.
that's why he's a
Oh,
nerd, and
come
those
on. Stop it.
it's all those things. But
No.
the funny thing is the gaming, they all sort of, they tune out all the game action of it, but when
I
they hear
miss
the
gaming.
friends,
The last console I had is the PS2. I'm such a Loser.
You got to get into it. There's
I know.
so many fantastic
My brother-in-law has the new PlayStation, and it's beautiful. That Spider-Man game is sick.
But thank you very much for coming on.
Sure. No, go ahead.
We can do this for hours.
I got to go walk the dog anyway.
On hours. But yeah.
I got to take care of Jax.
Notes being passed to me and all kinds of other stuff. There's things. It's only 9:30
duty calls.
Here, so
I get it.
So everybody's still up and doing stuff. My wife's got work tomorrow, and the kids got school. So there's
I have work tomorrow too. So I get it.
Thank you for coming on.
Thanks, 97. I really appreciate it too. This was really lovely.
Yeah, it was fun. It was definitely fun. We have to do it again. I want to get everybody on eventually.
Yeah.
And the different podcasts
that'd be great.
Out to. I want to interview them separately, and I would like to interview them together as the crew, because that's a different energy all in itself.
So. Oh yeah, you got a good plan going there. So and thank you again to everyone in the chat and everyone who stayed in the chat. I appreciate it.
That's the one thing that
I hope you were entertained. I'm not that interested.
A habit of mine. Yeah, definitely. But I want this to become a habit of mine is right before the end of the podcast, giving a shout out to everybody who's in there. Look, Chantal's here. 97 Bravo's here. Red 5 Network. Alan from Press Play Streaming Studios. We have Sith Care Bear, also known as Josh. For those playing at home, we got Backyard TARDIS. Lots of Josh.
And
bless your heart. Thank you, sir, for participating. Frank makes his appearance. Thank you, sir. Red 5 all the way through. Thank you very much, Ro, for showing up. I really appreciate you doing your thing, brother, and bringing all these great individuals together and giving a voice to people who, for the better part of their lives, felt that they didn't have the voice people wanted to hear, or a voice that people look to hear or look forward to listening to. So it's an extremely important thing that he's doing. Gold Squadron and all those people who are in the original crew, they're all fantastic. Every single person who's in Red 5 is fantastic. It's not that if you're not. It's just that the people that Ro has found that have gravitated towards him have this positive energy, and that even though my material is wholly different from theirs, it's still that one moment will Bill Burr plays that Star Wars character. Everyone's like, I love Bill Burr now.
I love Bill Burr.
Have you seen his stand-up comedy? That's kind of how I see myself. Like I'm that one character in that one show. Everyone's like, oh.
Preach, 97, preach.
But they get to my content, they're like, ooh.
What?
So now, so I'm gravitating more towards interviews and those kinds of things, and keeping the spicy for Twitter.
I like it. Keep it going.
An ass of myself on video.
That's okay. I do it all the time. Don't worry about it. Kindred spirits.
Exactly. So on that note of not making an ass of ourselves, we shall stop before we do so. Thank you for stopping by. Thank you to everybody in chat. Thank you very much, Chantal, for coming by.
Thanks, 97. Sure. No problem.
Ladies and gentlemen, if you're still listening to this 2 hours and 30 minutes into it, I love you. Press follow, play, share, subscribe, do all those wonderful things you know what to do. I'm not going to do that. As you go throughout your week, and until the next time we talk, be good to each other. Always be indomitable. And forever and always do you, but be cool. Take care.